Chapter 38:25. Yi Shiwen looked up and saw a man with a black face and fangs. He had a hideous face and a majestic body. This man was surrounded by a terrifying poisonous gas. Ordinary sovereign kings would die if they took a whiff of it. Even heavenly venerables would die if they took a whiff of it. His entire body seemed to be made up of only one word, and that was the word poison. There were no other laws, and there were no fluctuations of divine abilities. There was only the word poison. However, he had cultivated this word to an unprecedented level, and he had actually entered the half-step sovereign realm. It could be seen that there was no difference in power between techniques and talents. What kind of technique had what kind of power? Most importantly, it depended on the strength of the person using it. Yi Shiwen looked up and glanced at him. Then, he closed his eyes again. He didn't want to say anything, or rather, he couldn't be bothered to say anything. This person had just arrived. When he arrived, the heavenly venerables were also discussing it. Yi Shiwen learned about this person's origin. Poison Dao era's half-step sovereign, Thousand Poisons strange sovereign. He was an ancient half-step sovereign who achieved Dao in the Poison Dao era. However, he had a strange temper, which was why he was called Strange Sovereign. The Poison Dao epoch was very strange to begin with. It was an epoch filled with poisons. During that epoch's era, even the ancient epoch rarely attacked because they would be poisoned if they weren't careful. There were all sorts of terrifying poisons and poisonous insects everywhere, and the air was filled with the aura of rotting poisons. Ordinary creatures couldn't survive in such a place. However, although Yi Shiwen didn't want to talk to him, this Thousand Poisons strange sovereign clearly didn't think so. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen didn't care about him at all. This made him extremely unhappy. He had a strange temper. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called Strange Sovereign. Seeing that Yi Shiwen didn't speak, he said in a strange tone, "Some people really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They don't even know if they can sit in some positions." Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen because they knew that Thousand Poisons strange senior's target was Yi Shiwen. It was obvious that he had come for Yi Shiwen. They wanted to see how Yi Shiwen would react. However, they were disappointed because Yi Shiwen didn't move at all. His eyes were closed, and he looked calm and at ease. He didn't care about Thousand Poisons strange senior's words at all. Many people couldn't help but feel disappointed. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen must have his own pride and strength since he dared to sit in the first seat. However, he didn't say a word even though Thousand Poisons strange senior was mocking him. Could it be that he didn't know the rules? Qin Zun, who was sitting opposite him, was also resting with his eyes closed. He seemed to have no intention of getting involved. This made Thousand Poisons strange senior's eyes flicker with a terrifying poisonous light. He looked over and saw that Yi Shiwen's aura was only that of a heavenly venerable. He wasn't even a half-step sovereign. How dare he sit in the middle of half-step sovereigns? Not only that, but he also dared to sit above them. If he wasn't afraid of Qin Zun's prestige, he would have already attacked him. A mere heavenly venerable dared to behave atrociously above them. So what if Yi Shiwen was a peak heavenly venerable? In his eyes, Yi Shiwen was just an existence that he could casually kill. Now that Qin Zun didn't want to get involved, he had some thoughts. He wanted to teach this reckless heavenly venerable a lesson. He stretched out his skinny and slender finger, and a poisonous mist flew out from his finger. When no one was paying attention, it went straight for Yi Shiwen. In an instant, it was already in front of Yi Shiwen. The Thousand Poisons freak had a complacent look on his face. His eyes flickered with a frightening viciousness. He loved teaching these celestial venerables a lesson the most. He would slowly torture them, watching their skin fester first, then their bodies, and finally, even their yuan spirit. It was such a delightful thing. However, to his disappointment, Yi Shiwen didn't get hit. He just opened his mouth and swallowed it in one gulp. It was as if nothing happened. Even half-step sovereigns didn't dare to touch the poisonous mist. They might get hit by it, but Yi Shiwen swallowed it in one gulp. He was completely fine. While he was dumbfounded, he saw Yi Shiwen burp. The word poison floated out of his mouth. Yi Shiwen had actually reverted his poisonous mist back to its original form, turning it into an ancient word. This ancient word was the foundation of his Tao. He had obtained this word before he became a half-step sovereign in an era. If it wasn't for this word, he wouldn't have his current achievements. This poison word was also the method he used to dominate the world. No one had ever been able to imitate it. Even trying to figure it out was difficult. Every half-step sovereign was a sovereign in a certain field. Clearly, he was unparalleled in the poison Tao. Now, his poison word was actually broken by someone. He clearly saw that the poison word that Yi Shiwen spat out was just a little smaller than his. However, Yi Shiwen had already grasped the core of his poison word. As long as Yi Shiwen cultivated it, it was only a matter of time before his poison Tao was on par with him. He opened his mouth in shock. His face was filled with horror. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to have such an ability. It was only at this moment that everyone realized that both sides had just exchanged blows. They had exchanged blows. From their expressions, it was clear that Thousand Poison's strange senior didn't get the upper hand as he wished. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an expression. Anyone who had a slight understanding of the Thousand Poison's freak knew very well how strange he was. He loved to torture people for his own amusement. Therefore, even half-step ruler realm experts didn't want to have too much contact with him. They were afraid that they would be poisoned by him. That would be a real pleasure to be in heaven. Even if they were half-step sovereigns and weren't afraid of Thousand Poison's strange senior under normal circumstances, it didn't mean they wouldn't fall for his tricks. Right now, Yi Shiwen's performance was too shocking. Thousand Poison's strange senior's attack clearly didn't work. Instead, it was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. After a round of reverting, it turned into a poison word. Many half-step sovereigns' eyes flickered with a horrifying light. They didn't know if Yi Shiwen had absolute strength, or if he had some kind of divine ability or cultivation technique that happened to be able to restrain Thousand Poison's strange senior. If it was the latter, it would be fine. If it was the former, then it would be truly terrifying. The heavenly venerables below were also shocked. This was a fight between half-step sovereigns. They had seen it many times, especially those who knew how terrifying Thousand Poison's strange senior was. They looked at Yi Shiwen in shock as if they were looking at a monster. He wasn't afraid of Thousand Poison's strange senior at all. At this moment, Yi Shiwen finally made his move. Among the 3,000 great Daos in his body, another great Tao emerged. It was Poison Tao. In the martial epoc's martial Tao, there were many martial arts that were related to poison and merged with Poison Tao. His 3,000 martial Tao also included Poison Tao. However, his comprehension of Poison Tao wasn't very high among his 3,000 martial Tao. It could only be considered average. Now, with the help of Thousand Poison's strange senior's poison, he suddenly comprehended many mysteries of Poison Tao. Although he hadn't reached Thousand Poison's strange senior's level, it was only a matter of time. As long as he cultivated diligently day and night, he would reach Thousand Poison's strange senior's level sooner or later. Right now, the most terrifying poison of Thousand Poison's strange senior was nothing to him. He had already comprehended all kinds of mysteries. Thousand Poison's strange senior couldn't stir up any trouble in front of him. Poison Tao is indeed one of the 3,000 great Tao. It has its own mysteries. Unfortunately, this is all you have. You can cultivate to half-step sovereigns with only this kind of method. What a miracle! Yi Shiwen mocked without any trace of politeness. What did you say? Thousand Poison's strange lord suddenly stood up from the cloud bed. He couldn't bear to see someone ridiculing him on the cloud bed. However, Yi Shiwen had ruthlessly ridiculed him. He couldn't care less about his previous fear of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen glanced at Thousand Poisons Strange Senior and said, "I said that it's a miracle that you can cultivate to half-step sovereigns. Originally, I wouldn't have bothered with you if you said a few more words, but since you dared to attack me, I have no choice but to teach you a lesson. I'll also show you my methods. If I don't let you suffer retribution, how will you know how powerful I am?" "You!" Thousand Poisons Strange Senior sneered. "Even the commandment Heavenly Monarch wouldn't dare to say that. Give me retribution." As soon as he finished speaking, the Thousand Poisons Strange Senior attacked. Countless poisonous fog swirled around his body. Then, it turned into a terrifying gale and swept towards Yi Shiwen. Although the poisonous fog was terrifying, it seemed to have eyes of its own. It bypassed everyone and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Although he had a strange temper, he wasn't stupid. If he offended everyone and dragged them down with him, he wouldn't be able to handle it even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. The poison mist was in liquid form, solid form, gaseous form, and all sorts of other forms. If one could zoom in, one would see that the poison mist was made up of small poison Tao laws that could not be seen by the naked eye. Using the laws to attack directly and turning them into the form of a divine ability was the power of the Thousand Poisons Strange Venerable. Even other half-step sovereigns wouldn't be willing to offend such a person. However, Yi Shiwen just slightly sneered. Then, he directly swallowed the poisonous mist in one gulp. His expression didn't change as he said, "It's just SOSO. This kind of method is useless against me." Chapter 38-26. The Thousand Poisons Strange Senior's eyes widened when he saw this. This was his trump card. He had never made a mistake in this matter. It wasn't that there weren't people who could resist his poisonous mist, but those people basically had to use all kinds of divine ability laws in order to resist his poisonous mist. It was the first time that he swallowed it in one gulp. If his poison Tao laws were useless against the other party, then he didn't know what method he could use to hurt the other party. At this moment, Yi Shiwen made his move. He finally couldn't bear it any longer after enduring for a long time. Universe Creation Palm. Yi Shiwen's palm fell. Suddenly, heaven and earth seemed to have reversed and condensed together. Then, it pressed down on the Thousand Poisons Strange Senior fiercely. The Thousand Poisons Strange Senior unleashed his poison techniques almost immediately. He wanted to resist Yi Shiwen's suppression. However, it was not that easy. He found that the martial power of his body was restricted. His terrifying poison technique, which could destroy a world at any time, could not spread more than 3 meters away from his body. It was directly suppressed. His laws had been restricted, and the other party had a much more tyrannical power than him, which was why his power could be completely suppressed. He understood this point very well. In the blink of an eye, he wanted to retreat. This celestial was far from being as simple as he thought. He wasn't a yawning toad. What big words! He really did have terrifying strength. In terms of real strength, he was not very outstanding. He was just relying on his superb poison technique. However, even his poison techniques could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. He had no other way. However, he discovered that the surrounding space, time, and everything else had been sealed when he wanted to escape. And he had no way to escape at all. He could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm fell on him. This feeling was very terrifying. From the outside, it seemed that Yi Shiwen had slammed his palm down at a normal speed. However, for the Thousand Poisons Strange Senior, the time he faced was very slow. The universe creation palm was crushing down inch by inch. In other words, the flow of time inside and outside the universe creation palm was different. This supreme technique of the Fortune Heavenly Monarch also contained the endless laws of time and space. Only when one truly comprehended it to a certain extent could one truly display its amazing power. "I'll kill you!" The Thousand Poisons Strange Senior felt extremely aggrieved. He was bullied by Yi Shiwen, but he had selectively forgotten that he had provoked Yi Shiwen repeatedly and even wanted to kill him. His poison technique broke out completely. He was burning his life, burning everything, and illuminating the entire sky. Then, his terrifying martial power turned into a shocking torrent and blasted towards Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm. However, it was useless. Facing the monstrous palm that was slapping down, he had no power to fight back at all. Wherever the universe creation palm passed, the palm power was like a sharp long blade that cut through everything. Not only did it cut through the space, but even the torrent of power that Thousand Poisons Freak unleashed with all of his power could not withstand it and was turned into nothingness. Then, everyone saw Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm fall on the Thousand Poisons Strange Senior's body. Ah! The Thousand Poisons Monster Lord let out a blood-curdling screech as his body was torn apart into pieces. The other heavenly venerables and half-step sovereigns were terrified when they saw this scene. They could naturally see how terrifying the universe creation palm was. The usage of the laws of time and space had reached the extreme. That was why it could injure the Thousand Poisons Strange Senior so easily. Especially since the flow of energy inside and outside the palm was different, there was no way to resist it. One could only take it head-on. However, what shocked them was that this fellow who looked like a heavenly venerable was actually so terrifying and powerful. Universe Creation Palm. You are from the martial epoch. Thousand Poisons Freak's body reassembled. However, his complexion was deathly pale at this moment. He didn't know who Yi Shiwen was, but he knew about this martial art. This set of palm technique had once shocked the primal chaos and created countless legends. It was unknown how many powerful opponents it had killed. It was simply unimaginable. Everyone reacted at this moment. Without a doubt, the universe creation palm was the supreme martial technique of the martial epoch. Not to mention whether they could learn it or not. Even if they could, it would be useless. This was because this was a great technique of the martial epoch. What they were learning was not the same thing as the martial epoch. Even if they behaved similarly most of the time, it did not mean that they were the same. However, after thinking about it, many people understood. Wasn't Qin Tianzuan born in the martial epoch? Looking at it this way, it was normal that the people who came with him were also from the martial epoch. However, there was a name that appeared in many people's minds. It was a person that had disturbed the entire primal chaos recently. It was that person who had gone on an expedition to the ancient era and defeated countless experts from the ancient era. It was that person who had killed many half-step dominator rank experts. The martial epoch, the Eastern heavenly venerable of the Fortune God dynasty. After thinking of this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Then, the way they looked at Yi Shiwen changed. Originally, those half-step sovereigns were very upset. A heavenly venerate did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He still dared to sit above them. He was simply seeking death. If it were not for Qin Tianzuan, some of the half-step sovereigns would have already made a move. The Thousand Poisons Strange Venerate was just the one who could not hold back the most. However, the Thousand Poisons Strange Venerate's miserable defeat showed how terrifying this person was. He is even stronger than the legends say. Although he had killed no less than 10 powerful half-step sovereigns, the legends from more than 100,000 years ago said that he wasn't this powerful. At that time, he had to use all his strength just to kill a half-step sovereign, even burning his life force. But now, it's as easy as lifting a finger for him to kill a half-step sovereign. This is too shocking. I have never seen such a speed of improvement. I have also never seen such a horrifying heavenly venerate. It is already a miracle for a heavenly venerate to fight a half-step sovereign, but he can actually beat a half-step sovereign. Is he going to create a new history, a new legend? At this time, whether it was the half-step sovereigns or the heavenly venerates, They were all discussing spiritedly. It was as if they had seen an inconceivable monster. When they understood Yi Shiwen's identity, many mysteries were explained. It turned out that he was actually the legendary martial epoc's Eastern Heavenly Venerate. After the Fortune Heavenly Monarch and Qin Tianzuan, he was another man who shocked the entire primal chaos. Compared to him, the Fortune God Dynasty's Deputy Heavenly Venerate was really dim. Although he was also a half-step sovereign, it was obvious that he was a newcomer who had just stepped into the half-step sovereign realm. Compared to Yi Shiwen, who could easily beat a half-step sovereign, there was a huge difference. That's right. I am the martial epoc's Fortune God Dynasty's Eastern Heavenly Venerate. Today, I am here to celebrate the Discipline Heavenly Monarch's birthday. A frog at the bottom of a well like you still dares to act recklessly. Originally, you would not be able to escape death if you dared to attack me. However, I will give the Discipline Heavenly Monarch some face today and spare your life. Scram. I don't want to see you again. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee that I won't kill you. The moment Yi Shiwen made his move, he naturally knew that he could no longer keep his identity a secret. Moreover, he did not intend to keep it a secret, so he just went with the flow and admitted it. Although he did not kill the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate, he was overbearing and directly pressuring the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate. He did not treat the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate as an existence on the same level. However, based on the earlier situation, it was hard for others to view the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate as an existence on the same level as Yi Shiwen. This time, the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate was truly humiliated. He glared at Yi Shiwen fiercely. He did not hide the ruthlessness in his eyes at all. His face was ashen and extremely unsightly. Not only did Yi Shiwen want to defeat him, but he also wanted to thoroughly humiliate him in front of everyone. The humiliation he suffered today would accompany him for the rest of his life unless he could kill Yi Shiwen himself to take revenge. Otherwise, he would be humiliated for the rest of his life. This was worse than killing him. It was especially so for a person with a strange personality like him. However, he did not continue to attack in the end. He did not dare to attack. Yi Shiwen had only used one palm strike, but it was enough to make him tremble in fear and lose all confidence. In fact, he even suspected that he would have died in Yi Shiwen's hands if it was not for the Discipline Heavenly Monarch. With such a terrifying Yi Shiwen, it was almost impossible for the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate to rely on his own strength to take revenge. Eastern Heavenly Venerate, don't be too arrogant. Although you have defeated me today, given your current situation, someone will come and deal with you sooner or later. When that time comes, you will really die," said the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate fiercely. He wanted to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces with his gaze. However, this was simply an extravagant hope that he could not achieve. "Take care of me? It's not your turn to see that. Get lost. Don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I will kill you every time I see you. I will not go back on my words," said Yi Shiwen coldly as he looked at the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate. In the end, the Thousand Poisons' strange venerate did not dare to confront Yi Shiwen head-on. He turned around and fled. Congratulating the Discipline Heavenly Monarch was just an excuse. His real goal was to participate in this alliance meeting. However, he was chased away by Yi Shiwen. It could be said that he had suffered a double loss. Just as Yi Shiwen was about to sit down again, another announcement was heard. Supreme God Jiuxiao has arrived. Chapter 38:27. This loud announcement attracted everyone's attention at once. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. At the same time, they understood that the real main character had arrived. In everyone's mind, if Qin Zun was qualified to occupy one of the chief seats, then the other one would definitely belong to Hierarch Heavenly. There was no reason for this. This had been people's fixed impression since ancient times. Although the Commandment Heaven Lord was the strongest, Hierarch Heavenly was one of the strongest after the Commandment Heaven Lord. It was not that there was no one in the world who could be compared to Hierarch Heavenly, but in their list, there was obviously no martial epic martial venerable. However, now Yi Shiwen casually sat in the seat that belonged to the supreme hierarch of the ninth heavens in people's hearts. This also made countless people start to watch. Hierarch Heavenly would definitely not tolerate it. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had no intention of giving up his seat. This also made many people shudder. There was bound to be a fierce battle between the two sides. Previously, there was only Yi Shiwen, so these could only be people's guesses. However, it was different now. The other main character had finally arrived. Obviously, this big show could also be staged in Cairo. As soon as this announcement was made, a powerful figure landed on the field. It was a middle-aged man with a pair of sharp eyes and a pair of sharp eyes. He walked in with a single step. He was tall, and everyone could see that he was an extremely confident man. His body was covered by endless dimensions. He seemed to be standing in the same place, but in fact, he was outside of countless dimensional spaces. In these layers of dimensional spaces there were countless traces of laws. There was even a law that condensed a layer of dimension. In some dimensions there were endless flames everywhere. In some dimensions there were cold winds howling and countless frost covering everything. These laws condensed into many dimensions. If a mortal could obtain any of them, his strength would skyrocket and he could ascend to become an immortal. In addition to the spatial dimension, there were all kinds of time dimensions and fragments. There were no other creatures, only a variety of time flows. This showed that Hierarch Heavenly's cultivation in the Time Tao was also earth-shattering. Although for many heavenly masters and even half-step sovereigns, the comprehension of space and time was actually only a basic accomplishment, it was still very rare to reach such a level. This showed how powerful Hierarch Heavenly was. It really is Hierarch Heavenly. He didn't come with a clone, he came in person. This is interesting. There must be a fierce battle between the two sides. Hierarch Heavenly is not an ordinary person. Obviously, this martial venerable is not easy to deal with either. There will be a big battle between the two sides. Supremacy Heavenly Firmament acted as if he hadn't heard the discussions of the crowd. He arrived at the cloud bed where the half-step sovereigns were resting. His gaze swept across the room and suddenly, a murderous aura surged as he looked in Yi Shiwen's direction. However, what surprised him was that after seeing Hierarch Heavenly Tao, the little holy venerable did not have the slightest intention to give up his seat. He had initially thought that Yi Shiwen had sat in the wrong seat, or perhaps he had thought that he wouldn't come. So, he had dared to sit in this seat. Even so, he still wanted to personally teach this ignorant person a lesson. But she didn't expect that he didn't even have the intention to step aside. He couldn't help but feel murderous. Then, he looked at Qin Zun and said, "Qin Zun, this Sky Sovereign is sitting in the wrong position. He actually dares to sit on the same level as you. Don't you know how to teach him how to be a person?" Qin Zun smiled and said, "I think he has the qualifications to sit here. If you want to chase him away, do it yourself. There's no need to use words to trick me." Qin Zun's words made Hierarch Heavenly Firmaments understand. There must be something strange about this. Logically speaking, a puny heavenly venerate dared to sit on the heads of a group of half-step sovereigns, and even sat opposite Qin Zun. However, no one stood out to point it out. This in itself was not right. Although there were no clear rules, it was clear that everyone had a tacit understanding that the higher one's strength was, the better one's position would be. This was a matter of course. However, Yi Shiwen had suddenly appeared in this position. He understood that there must be an evildoer if there was an abnormality. Hierarch Jiuxiao frowned slightly. At that moment, someone told him everything that had happened, especially about Yi Shiwen's identity. Yi Shiwen, a martial venerable of the martial epoch. When Hierarch Jiuxiao looked at Yi Shiwen again, it was already different. Earlier, he thought that Yi Shiwen was a heavenly venerate who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. To think that Yi Shiwen actually dared to sit in this position. He was simply seeking death. However, it was different now. An epoch ago, even if it was a mere 1,000,000 years ago, this name was nothing. However, in the past 100,000 years, this name had reached the point where everyone in the entire primal chaos era knew about it. Aside from those old monsters in closed-door cultivation, who didn't know that another world-shaking character had appeared in the martial epoch. Therefore, at that moment, Hierarch Jiuxiao no longer looked at Yi Shiwen with contempt and murderous intent. Instead, his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He had heard that Yi Shiwen had killed several half-step sovereigns as a heavenly venerate more than 100,000 years ago. Even if those half-step sovereigns were already very old, they would not be able to display their peak strength. Or perhaps he had been seriously injured and simply couldn't display his peak strength. Even so, an Empyrean could achieve such a feat. Yi Shiwen was already enough to shock the world. Not to mention that 100,000 years ago, Yi Shiwen had led the expedition of the martial epoch. That was even more earth-shattering. The situation of the entire primal chaos had changed because of it. It could be said that this expedition had almost replicated the earth-shattering event that the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord had done in the past. The destruction of several ancient eras in succession had made Yi Shiwen's name so prominent that even he himself might not be aware of it. Previously, when the ancient epochs besieged the martial epoch, Yi Shiwen could only go all out and burn his life force. However, when the martial epoch went on an expedition to the primal chaos 100,000 years ago, Yi Shiwen nearly crushed those half-step rulers in their prime. Although Yi Shiwen hadn't stepped into the half-step ruler realm at that time, with his battle prowess, it wouldn't have been a problem for him to enter the ranks of half-step rulers. Realm was just a saying. What truly determined everything was combat power. Moreover, during that expedition, Yi Shiwen actually withstood the divine thoughts of the heavenly Lord Yama and forcibly destroyed the ghost epoch. In the end, he even broke out and cut off one of the heavenly Lord Yama's arms. That kind of battle prowess was absolutely unprecedented. Even among the half-step rulers, there were only a few who could bully the heavenly Lord Yama because he couldn't descend with his true body. This was an earth-shattering expert, but such an expert would threaten his position. Hierarch Heavenly Venerate almost instinctively felt the threat from Yi Shiwen. Forget about Qin Zun, but this Yi Shiwen actually dared to sit on another chief disciple's seat. He didn't believe that no one had warned him, but Yi Shiwen still did so. So, the result was very obvious. Yi Shiwen didn't put him in his eyes at all. Hierarch Heavenly Venerate was furious, but he still didn't rush to make a move. Instead, he looked at Qin Zun. Although he was afraid of Yi Shiwen, it wasn't enough to make him swallow his anger. What he was really afraid of was Qin Zun. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen had Qin Zun behind him. Both of them came from the martial epoch, and they even came from the same race. This was enough to explain a lot of problems. Qin Zun, if you don't teach him to abide by the rules, then don't blame me for not giving you face and teaching the younger generation of the martial epoch a lesson, Hierarch Heavenly Venerate said to Qin Zun while suppressing his anger. However, Qin Zun just smiled and said, "You don't have to give me face. If you can teach him a lesson, then go ahead." Qin Zun's words clearly showed that he didn't believe that Hierarch Heavenly Venerate could teach Yi Shiwen a lesson. This made Hierarch Heavenly Venerate even angrier. "Alright, then I won't be polite." Hierarch Heavenly Venerate sneered and looked at Qin Zun. He didn't expect Qin Zun to be so arrogant. However, this was also good. Hierarch Heavenly Venerate wanted to see him defeat this guy from the martial epoch and embarrass him. After Hierarch Heavenly Venerate finished speaking, he already made his move. A treasure sword appeared in his hand. This treasure sword was flashing with 9 colors. Each color represented a supreme magic power and a supreme domain. This was also his trump card that allowed him to move unhindered in the world. Hierarch Heavenly Venerate's treasure sword slashed down without any mercy. In an instant, a ray of time light swept out. Everyone clearly saw an extremely terrifying scene. Everywhere the sword light passed, time instantly accelerated. Every second was equivalent to 1 billion years. If an ordinary celestial venerate was struck by this sword, he would die of old age immediately. That was because it wasn't just a matter of 1 billion years. It was a matter of 1 billion years being taken away in an instant. Using the power of time to kill a powerful enemy, no matter how powerful the enemy was, they wouldn't be able to recover in time if they were struck. Because the recovery time was too slow, 1 billion years would pass in an instant. Even if the enemy was a half-step ruler, if they could withstand the attack, they would still die within the 1 billion years that passed in an instant. Many people exclaimed. They didn't expect Hierarch Heavenly Venerate to use such a fierce method right from the start. Obviously, he had no intention of saying anything to Yi Shiwen. This sword instantly fell on Yi Shiwen's body. Chapter 38-28. In an instant, the law of time directly swept out brilliant light all over the sky, like a torrent, wanting to devour Yi Shiwen. OM! With a sound, a seal directly emerged from Yi Shiwen's body. The boundless light of the law hung down, forming a barrier, protecting Yi Shiwen in it. It was the martial saint's seal. Dang! With a huge roar, Yi Shiwen's martial saint's seal and the ninth heaven's divine sword collided fiercely. This was a terrifying blow that could shatter heaven and earth. Under the blessing of the ninth heaven's divine sword, the law of time burst out with a terrifying light. The light of 3,000 martial arts that erupted from the martial saint's seal directly blocked it. The law of time could not invade Yi Shiwen's domain. What was even more terrifying was that both sides seemed to be controlling this collision. This time, this explosion was controlled within a radius of 1 meter, and there was no leakage at all. Everyone could see that within a radius of 1 meter, the light of the explosion was like the creation and destruction of the world. It was extremely terrifying. However, outside of this 1 meter, it was calm and there was no fluctuation at all. This also highlighted that the control of the two's power had really reached the point of perfection. Since you also want to fight for this position, then let's fight in the chaos. I also want to experience the power of the legendary divine ninth heavens. Yi Shiwen easily blocked the terrifying attack of divine ninth heavens. He did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. He just took a step forward, and in an instant, he had already arrived in the chaos. I'm afraid that you will regret it. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Divine ninth heavens sneered, and then directly took a step forward, also arriving in the boundless chaos. As soon as he entered the chaos, divine ninth heavens launched an attack. Countless rays of light directly swept out, and hundreds of millions of rays of immortal light instantly erupted. The heavenly magic sword in his hand directly swept out a terrifying light. The power of time and space were stuck together. This was the origin of everything. When time and space intersected, it was the universe, and it was the power to split the heavens and the earth. Divine ninth heavens could be unhindered in the world for so many years, and indeed he was powerful. Yi Shiwen instantly felt that the space around his body had solidified. Even the time had been frozen. No matter what he did, his speed was very slow. He couldn't raise his speed at all. He could only watch as the heavenly magic sword came towards his face. Bang! There was an incomparably loud roar, and countless fragments burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. Those were fragments of the time law, and those were fragments of the space law. The two principles that were originally acting on Yi Shiwen's body were now directly smashed into powder by Yi Shiwen. Hiss! Many heavenly venerables and even half-step sovereigns sucked in a breath of cold air. To them, breaking the time and space laws wasn't something impossible. In a situation where their strength was similar, even they could do it. It wasn't a miraculous thing. However, he was able to smash the two principles into pieces just by relying on the strength of his body. How tyrannical was his body's strength! And at this time, Yi Shiwen already had a sword of fate in his hand, and then the sword of fate swept out, directly colliding with the heavenly divine sword. Clang! A loud roar was accompanied by the sound of gold and iron colliding. The two sides directly collided, and everything was annihilated. In front of the two-world annihilation divine swords, no matter what kind of existence it was, it seemed so powerless, unable to resist at all. However, such a collision only lasted for a moment. After the two sides collided once, they immediately withdrew their long swords and stabbed again. Clang! 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 Again and again collided in an instant. Every moment, the two sides could exchange thousands, tens of thousands of moves, and each move had the power to destroy the heaven and earth. Often, when they were still fighting here, it seemed that nothing had happened. In the next moment, when they left, the whole place directly exploded, and a huge hole was blasted out in the chaos. It looked extremely terrifying. Because when the two of them were here, they used their own tyrannical principles to suppress the whole and collapse in the entire chaos, and also suppressed the surrounding space so that it wouldn't collapse. In the hands of the two of them, all kinds of gorgeous sword skills were directly displayed. Some used fast speed, some used slow speed, some used heavy momentum, and some used light swords. All kinds of completely different sword skills broke out in the hands of the two of them, and all kinds of gorgeous sword skills were too much for the audience to take in. The sword skills were at their fingertip. Every move seemed to be just a simple sword skill, but they carried the great Tao of both sides, and the moves were just a means of turning the great Tao into a terrible attack. Both of them were well versed in this, and directly fought into the depths of the chaos. It could be said that it was hard to determine who was superior. Yi Shiwen's sword move was just a simple sword move of the martial Tao epoch. Moreover, Hierarch Heavenly Firmament had integrated his epoch's great Tao into it. It was almost like a clash of the sword Tao of two epochs. It seemed to be the same, but in fact, the core was safe. I didn't expect that the martial Tao epoch's martial venerable could actually fight with the heavenly divine sword to this point. It's simply a draw. Yes, no wonder he dared to sit in the seat of the heavenly divine sword. How dare he be so presumptuous without some skills? This is really scary. Can the current heavenly venerables be so strong? Since ancient times, I have never heard of such a scary thing in countless epochs. Could it be that the current martial Tao epoch really has a mystery that no one else knows? In the past, there was the Fortune Heavenly Lord, then there was Qin Venerable, and now there is a Martial Venerable. In the chaos, the heavenly divine sword roared again and again, constantly increasing his strength, but he found that there was no way to deal with Yi Shiwen. No matter how much he increased his power, he would find that Yi Shiwen was always able to steadily block all of his attacks, as if all of his attacks were futile. Wu Zun, you're actually on par with me. No wonder you dare to sit in my seat. But if you think you're qualified to be on equal footing with me, then you're gravely mistaken. Let me tell you, an Empyrean is just an Empyrean, and a half-step sovereign will always be a half-step sovereign. As soon as the heavenly divine sword's voice fell, he chanted countless syllables. He mobilized his own dharma with difficulty, and the terrifying collision of his physical body caused billions of beams of immortal light to appear between his eyebrows. In an instant, they had already ignited the entire chaos. He had also become extremely terrifying. On his body, the light of 9 kinds of Dharma magical powers entangled, turning into a terrible light pillar, and soared into the sky. Quick! The heavenly divine sword in the heavenly divine sword in the heavenly divine sword's hand slashed out. This terrifying force finally had a vent in his body, whistling out. The entire chaos was swept away, and directly turned into nothingness, leaving nothing behind. The chaos was the root of everything, and also the beginning of the evolution of everything, but there was also something in the chaos. After this sword swept across, even the chaos did not exist, and even the chaos was annihilated, leaving nothing behind. Rumble! A series of terrible explosions occurred, and the sword light directly drowned Yi Shiwen. The 9 kinds of divine light shook the chaos. A somewhat proud smile appeared on the heavenly divine sword's face. In his opinion, it was impossible for Yi Shiwen to survive this direct attack. Even if a half-step ruler was directly hit by this sword, he would still die. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen was only a heavenly venerable with the combat power of a half-step ruler. Is it over? Some heavenly venerables murmured. In their hearts there was a kind of faint hope, hoping that Yi Shiwen would not fall like this. These half-step rulers were high and mighty rulers for countless eras. Even though they were noble heavenly venerables, and usually held great power in the world, they still had to bow down to these half-step rulers. There was no way to resist, and this was the reality. Everyone had to follow this rule. Heavenly venerables would always bow down to half-step rulers. But now there was Yi Shiwen, who seemed to be able to break this rule. Just the half-step rulers alone had been killed, so they did not want Yi Shiwen to die, even though they knew that no matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, it had nothing to do with them. But in their hearts they still faintly had that kind of hope. Evenly matched? I think you are mistaken? I was just testing your level. I didn't expect to give you such a wrong impression. Suddenly, a clear voice sounded in the chaos, and then, a sword light appeared in the sky, almost at lightning speed, tearing apart all of Hierarch Heavenly's attacks. Then, Yi Shiwen appeared in front of everyone. He was still dressed in black, and he did not use the legendary good fortune robe as some people had imagined. In other words, Yi Shiwen had almost blocked Hierarch Heavenly's attack with his own strength, relying on his own physical strength. What? How is this possible? Hierarch Heavenly was suddenly shocked. He did not hold back in this attack, and he even felt that after being hit by his attack, even the commandment Heavenly Lord would be seriously injured. At the moment when he slashed out, he seemed to feel that the entire chaos of the universe was under his control. But the moment Yi Shiwen appeared, things had already gone out of his control. His Taoist heart even appeared to be unstable for a moment, and for a moment, he wondered if he was really invincible. Yi Shiwen's sword attack did not slow down, and directly blasted towards Hierarch Heavenly. Hierarch Heavenly did not even have any reaction. This attack was too fast, extremely fast. In addition, Hierarch Heavenly did not expect Yi Shiwen to be able to counterattack after being hit by his attack, so he was not prepared at all. Bang! Yi Shiwen's sword light slashed on Hierarch Heavenly. Poochie! A flower of blood bloomed in the chaos. Chapter 38-29. Yi Shiwen's sword light fell on Hierarch Heavenly's body and immediately opened a huge wound on his body. The power of the Sword of Fate was so great that it could cut an ordinary half-step sovereign in half. But now that it fell on Hierarch Heavenly's body, it was enough to make him bleed. Hierarch Heavenly let out a muffled groan, and his whole body was instantly sent flying. The sudden reversal of the situation made everyone's eyes widen. They were afraid that, if they blinked, they would miss the most important part. Both of them could be said to have the combat power of a peak half-step sovereign. They could be regarded as the best among the half-step sovereigns. Although Yi Shiwen was only a heavenly master, people had clearly classified him as a peak half-step sovereign. Seeing this scene, Qin Zun did not seem to be surprised. He looked as if everything was under his control. If Yi Shiwen could not even reach this level, he would not have sought Yi Shiwen as an ally. This time, they even had to contend against the experts of 2 holy lands. If they were not strong enough, how could they do it? After the successful attack, Yi Shiwen did not stop at all. The sword of fate in his hand once again burst with dazzling light. The sword slashed down fiercely. The sword light was like a starry sky, igniting the entire chaos. Chaos. The entire chaos seemed to be directly slashed apart with one move. It looked extremely terrifying. Hierarch Heavenly, who had just stabilized his body, was directly blasted away. With a scream, his whole body directly exploded. Countless blood sprayed out, forming a vast ocean in the chaos. In the chaos, countless chaotic creatures were crushed to death. No one knew where the blood fell. Roar! Hierarch Heavenly roared and roared again and again, but it was of no use. Because as soon as he condensed, Yi Shiwen's sword slashed down directly. Chaos! Yi Shiwen's voice was clear and cold, as if the voice came from hell. The sword of fate in his hand kept falling. Every sword slash tore the chaos apart, and then directly fell on Hierarch Heavenly's body. Every time it was a sword strike. Every time when Divine Supremacy Heavenly Clouds was about to recover, there were not many movements, but every sword strike made Divine Supremacy Heavenly Clouds unable to fight back. The power of each sword was the same, no more and no less, but it was just enough to prevent Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds from launching an attack. Slash the chaos! Slash the chaos! Slash the chaos! Many people were horrified to hear the sound of slash the chaos. Then, accompanied by the sound of slash the chaos, the physical body of Divine Supremacy Ninth Heaven was directly cut open. Everyone felt that it was incomparably terrifying. With every slash, who knew how many tens of thousands of years of his cultivation would be shaved away? It could really be said that his vitality was greatly damaged. Blood rebirth was just a basic ability for extreme powerhouses. However, every time someone's body was destroyed, their vitality would be greatly damaged, not to mention being destroyed so many times in a row. At this moment, Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds finally couldn't bear it anymore, and completely broke out. When he was blasted again, he let out a long roar, and his body propped up countless strange phenomena. 9 kinds of light flew out from his body, and in an instant it turned into a world. Yi Shiwen's sword slashed the chaos again, but it couldn't cut through the world formed by the 9 kinds of light immediately. Finally, Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds broke free from Yi Shiwen's terrifying sword screen. Huff, huff, huff. Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds' breathing became more and more rapid. He only felt that blood was dripping from all over his body, and every cell in his body was reorganizing. He only felt incomparable anger and humiliation. He had never experienced such an experience. He was forced to this point, and it was like being taught a lesson like a dead dog. In the battle between him and Yi Shiwen just now, he lost the initiative, and this was the price he had to pay for losing the initiative. However, the price he had to pay was too high. Wu Zun, I must make you pay the price. Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds let out a long roar, and all the qi and blood in his body were concentrated. All the spiritual power in his body was raised, and integrated into the Heavenly Divine Sword in his hand. The Heavenly Divine Sword also burst out a burst of buzzing sound. Within 0.003 of a second, the Heavenly Divine Sword moved, and suddenly like a long dragon, wrapped in countless great techniques, swept in the direction of Yi Shiwen. This was a terrifying secret technique, which directly smashed the chaos. The 9 kinds of magical laws were combined into one, and the power that swept out was shocking and frightening. Such an attack was at least 50% stronger than the previous attack of Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Cloud. It could be said that he was staking it all on one throw. He must defeat Yi Shiwen, otherwise there would be no way for him to live. If he was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen in front of so many people, then Yi Shiwen's reputation would spread throughout the ages, and he would be a stepping stone to set off Yi Shiwen's supreme glory. This was absolutely not what he was willing to do. In the face of this torrent of magical techniques, Yi Shiwen did not have the slightest fear on his face. At this time, he no longer used the Sword of Fate, but directly stepped out, directly facing this torrent of magical technique. Boom! His figure was instantly submerged by this torrent, and a large piece of the chaos was directly erased. Looking from afar, it was extremely terrifying. Suddenly, right when everyone was at a loss for words, a pair of large golden hands suddenly grabbed out from within the chaos and tore the torrent apart, and then a figure flashed out from within. Everyone looked at that person, but who else could it be other than Yi Shiwen? At this time, Yi Shiwen's whole body was golden, like a supreme god. Everyone could clearly see that it was the golden light emitted by endless merit. Everyone was shocked. How much merit did he have to obtain to be able to practice the golden body of merit to this level? No wonder Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds could not break Yi Shiwen's golden body no matter what. This level of golden body of merit was innately invincible. At this time, Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds also understood, but it was too late. Yi Shiwen casually blasted out a punch, and suddenly the entire chaos was rumbling. The sun, moon, and stars in countless worlds were resonating with Yi Shiwen, blooming with endless precious brilliance, and then all condensed on Yi Shiwen's punch. Bang! Supreme Hierarch Heavenly Clouds screamed, and his whole body instantly flew out. He could not dodge at all, and his body exploded again. However, at this time, a deep voice came from the chaos. "Dear Wu Zun, for my sake, please stop, how about it?" Chapter 38:30. Yi Shiwen retracted his technique and looked toward the eternal sacred land. On the commandment sacred mountain, a figure had appeared at the main seat of the banquet without anyone noticing. The figure was tall and slender. He wore an ancient, luxurious robe and had a handsome face. He seemed to be the most perfect form in the world. However, Yi Shiwen discovered that this figure had more than one form. The human form was only one of them. There were also giant worms and beasts that were millions of meters long. Different people saw different forms. Of course, this didn't mean that he had that many true bodies. In fact, this wasn't a divine ability. Everyone present was either an Empyrean or a half-step ruler. All of them had celestial eyes, and no divine ability could fool their eyes. However, Yi Shiwen immediately understood that this was a type of great Tao. The great Tao he cultivated had transformed his body into a great Tao. The benevolent saw benevolence, and the wise saw wisdom. Everyone saw different things according to their own circumstances. Yi Shiwen was a human who had attained great Tao. Naturally, he saw the most perfect form of the human race at first glance. He immediately recognized this person's identity. It was the legendary commandment Heaven Lord. The commandment Heaven Lord was indeed strong. Yi Shiwen was able to determine that the Lord of Discipline was indeed capable of posing a threat to him with just a glance. Whether it was Thousand Poisons Monster Venerate or Hierarch Heavenly Firmaments, he hadn't taken them seriously because they couldn't pose any threat to him. The battles that followed also proved this point. He could defeat the two of them with a casual strike. However, the commandment Heaven Lord was different. He felt similar to Qin Zun. No wonder Qin Zun had said that he was similar to the commandment Heaven Lord. They should already be at the peak of the half-step ruler realm, one of the strongest few. He was shocked by the commandment Heaven Lord's strength. Only he knew how much he'd benefited from the martial epic's heavenly Tao in the past 100,000 years. It was unimaginable. However, for the commandment Lord of Heaven, he looked calm on the surface, but in fact, he was also extremely shocked. In fact, he had seen this battle from beginning to end. Yi Shiwen, as a heavenly master, had defeated and crushed Hierarch Jiuxiao without any suspense. This kind of thing had never happened since ancient times, and Yi Shiwen was the first one. An Empyrean that could contend against a half-step ruler was rare, but it wasn't impossible. There were always people with extraordinary talent and fortuitous encounters. However, killing half-step sovereigns as easily as slaughtering chickens was something he had never seen before. Since the commandment Heavenly Lord has interceded for you, then I will let you off this time, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Opposite him, Hierarch Jiuxiao, who had escaped from the calamity, glared at Yi Shiwen fiercely, then turned around and left. He didn't have the face to continue staying. Yi Shiwen had ruthlessly shredded his face in such a grand meeting. Everyone was watching. This made him feel extremely humiliated. Yi Shiwen didn't stop Hierarch Heavenly Firmament from leaving. He just turned around and returned to the cloud bed on the Commandment Mountain. Previously, everyone had some doubts about whether Yi Shiwen was qualified to sit in the chief seat. But now, they had no doubts at all. Yi Shiwen had used absolute strength to prove this point. Yi Shiwen looked at the Commandment Heavenly Lord, and the Commandment Heavenly Lord nodded slightly to express his gratitude. Yi Shiwen had stopped in time to give him face, and he had to accept this favor. Everyone, thank you all for coming to my birthday this time. Come, everyone, let's have a toast. The Commandment Heavenly Lord raised his hand and raised a cup of immortal wine. Everyone also raised their glasses and drank the wine. Yi Shiwen drank this cup of immortal wine and immediately felt the spiritual power in his body increase a little. The fragrance lingered on his teeth, not to mention the Empyreans. After drinking a mouthful, they had to start meditating to digest the boundless spiritual power contained in the immortal wine. If this kind of immortal wine could make mortals live a long life with just a sniff and make them ascend to heaven with just a drop, then the Commandment Heavenly Lord was really generous. It left everyone speechless. For a moment, everyone was toasting and toasting. The banquet went on for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping. All kinds of delicacies were served like flowing water. Fortunately, no one present was an ordinary person. Even 3 days and 3 nights felt like a snap of a finger to them. Everyone felt that they had gained a lot, especially the Empyreans. They felt that the 3-day banquet was even more rewarding than their own cultivation for hundreds of thousands of years. Even the half-step sovereigns could feel that they had gained a lot. Finally, when there were only leftovers left, the banquet came to an end. However, no one left because everyone knew that the Real show was about to begin. Everyone understood that this birthday celebration was just a superficial reason. What was really important was to enter that mysterious place and seize the opportunity to become a sovereign. Even the Empyreans were very interested in this point, because the things that flowed out of that mysterious place also had some opportunities to help the Empyreans enter the half-step sovereigns. This wasn't a myth, because the Commandment Heavenly Monarch had achieved Tao in this manner. Back then, the Commandment Heavenly Monarch was just a heavenly sovereign. Although he was invincible among heavenly sovereigns, he wasn't considered much among half-step sovereigns. However, after obtaining something from that mysterious place, his cultivation had skyrocketed. Not only had he become a half-step sovereign, but he'd also become one of the strongest among them. Apart from himself, no one knew what he had obtained from it. However, everyone was certain that he had obtained something from it. This time, the Commandment Heavenly Lord was the most proactive. After tasting the sweetness of success last time, he wanted to enter the mysterious place and seize the opportunity to become a sovereign. Everyone present had come from other ancient eras. None of them were from the eternal sacred land. They all knew that not everyone in the sacred land was against the Commandment Heavenly Lord. There was only one possibility. The Commandment Heavenly Lord had gathered all the major factions in the sacred land and gained their full support. Now, he needed to gather the forces of the various ancient eras. After all, no one would give up on an opportunity that could help them advance further. At this point, many people had already given up on many things. The only thing left was the supreme great Tao that they could not abandon. Everyone, I'm sure you all know that the mysterious place has reappeared after an era. There are still rumors circulating among the ancient eras that I obtained something from that place and attained Tao. I can tell you now that this is not just a rumor. It's the truth. The Commandment Heavenly Lord said slowly. The crowd was in an uproar. Even though they'd long since believed it, it was the first time they'd heard the Commandment Heavenly Lord confirm it. That was something from the last epoch. Many people know that although I became a half-step ruler in this epoch, I'm actually not a person of this epoch, but of the last epoch. The commandment Heavenly Lord continued. Back then, I obtained something by accident. Now, that place is about to reappear. This is when its barrier is at its weakest. I'm sure many of you want to go inside. Now, I'd like to invite all the fellow Taoists in the world to attack that mysterious place and seize our opportunity. Are you all interested? Everyone was silent. Although they had come for this matter, they still couldn't hide the excitement in their hearts. No one said anything for a while. After a long while, a celestial master stood up. As you command. As you command. We'll all listen to you. This time, I'm going to enter that mysterious place as well. Those who stand in my way shall be killed. After the celestial master, the crowd began to chime in. In short, there was only agreement. No one would disagree. That's good. Since that's the case, let's gather our strength and forge a path of survival, a path of eternal life. The commandment Heavenly Lord shot to his feet. Yi Shiwen watched the scene unfold. The celestial masters and half-step sovereigns weren't so easily persuaded. What truly moved them was the opportunity to attain Tao in the mysterious place. You can return to your own era or stay in the eternal sacred land. I'll treat you like honored guest. In 10 years, we'll attack that mysterious place. The commandment Heavenly Lord declared. Everything would begin in 10 years. The eternal sacred land needed time to prepare before they could open the mysterious place. 10 years was but the blink of an eye for the celestial masters and half-step sovereigns. Everyone chose to stay, and the commandment Heavenly Lord arranged for them to stay in their respective blessed lands. 10 years would pass in a moment's seclusion or a nap. Yi Shiwen and Qin Zun were arranged to stay in the best places, but Yi Shiwen chose to stay in the same blessed land as Qin Zun. He didn't want to let the 10 years go by, because once they entered that mysterious place, it would most likely be a bloody battle. He had yet to step into the half-step sovereign realm, so he was more or less on the passive side. Whether it was Qin Zun or the commandment Heavenly Monarch, both of them had the ability to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. That wasn't even counting the ancient sacred land he'd already made enemies with, or the Yama Lord who could appear at any moment. This was a path that could lead to ascension to Tao, but it could also be his grave. Despite his absolute confidence in himself, he had to be careful. He'd spent the last 10 years discussing Tao with Qin Zun. Qin Zun was truly one of the most powerful cultivators of his generation. His understanding of the Tao had reached an unimaginable level. The two of them discussed Tao and learned a great deal from each other. On this day, a terrifying shockwave swept across the sky. The entirety of the eternal sacred land felt it, as if something terrible was about to emerge. Chapter 38-31. At that moment, everyone knew that the moment was coming. That mysterious place had finally reappeared. The entire chaos space sensed its presence. Wave after wave of terrifying aura swept across the entire chaotic universe. The aura was suffocating, and countless living beings shuddered. In fact, the ones who felt it the most were the two Holy Lands. That was because the two Holy Lands revolved around this mysterious place. It could be said that they were the closest to it, so the impact they felt was also the greatest. Wave after wave of terrifying aura rose into the sky. They were all waiting for the arrival of the final moment. Yi Shiwen looked into the distance. It was a boundless, bottomless region. Even his eyes couldn't see through it. It had been rented by a mysterious force. Yi Shiwen soon noticed that an incomparably huge portal had appeared in that boundless area. It was a gigantic door that was inserted into the region. It seemed as though one could reach the boundless region through this door. That's the eternal door. Someone exclaimed in surprise. I didn't expect to see the eternal door again in my lifetime. Suddenly, a rain of light showered from the eternal door. It was dazzling, and a giant passage appeared in the region. Yi Shiwen and Qin Zun glanced at each other. Then, their figures disappeared from the heavenly cave and blessed land. They appeared on the outskirts of the eternal sacred land in an instant. Many celestial venerables and half-step sovereigns had also appeared on the outskirt. The one leading them was the commandment sovereign. What is this door? The eternal door? Did the mysterious place exist from the beginning? Yi Shiwen asked Qin Zun. He didn't know any of this, so it was the most appropriate time to ask Qin Zun. The eternal door didn't exist from the beginning. There wasn't an entrance in that place. The first person to enter it was the founder of the eternal sacred land, the legendary eternal sage. Qin Zun said. There was a trace of yearning in his expression, but more of determination. The eternal sacred land didn't exist at first. You know that, right? Later, the eternal saint monarch came to this mysterious place and meditated for 3 eras. Even when the world changed, it didn't affect the eternal saint monarch. During these 3 eras, the eternal sacred land was formed. After 3 eras, the eternal saint monarch refined the eternal gate and entered this mysterious place in one fell swoop. He was the first ruler to enter this mysterious place since ancient times. After him, other sovereigns entered the eternal sacred land and used the gates of eternity to enter the mysterious land. Many eras later, eternal celestial monarch appeared. He was another peerless genius who also entered the eternal sacred land. However, he didn't pass through the gates of eternity to enter the sacred land. He once said that the gates of eternity were flawed and couldn't be relied upon. In the end, he established the eternal sacred land and refined the eternal divine bridge to enter the mysterious land. Yi Shiwen heard this and raised his head to look. Sure enough, there was an incomparably huge divine bridge in the distant depths of the chaos. It was almost in another place of this region. It was unknown how many thousands of miles it was spread across the chaos. That should be the eternal divine bridge, the key to the eternal sacred land's entry into that mysterious place. Many years and countless eras had passed. However, Yi Shiwen seemed to be able to see the scene of those incomparably powerful rulers sitting cross-legged in front of this mysterious place from Qin Zun's words. They were comprehending the way. He could also see the grand occasion when the 2 sacred lands were established. Although the martial epoch and the 2 sacred lands could be said to be natural enemies, it didn't stop Yi Shiwen from marveling at the strength of the eternal sage monarch and the eternal sage monarch. So far, Yi Shiwen still couldn't compare to these 2 sovereigns. At the same time, he had a guess in his heart. What kind of place was this mysterious place? Why did so many sovereigns choose to enter it? Could it be that there was something they didn't know that outsiders didn't know? Yi Shiwen believed that none of those legendary existences were simple. They wouldn't do things without a purpose. There had to be something he didn't know. What about the fate creation heavenly monarch? Did he choose to go through the eternal door or the eternal divine bridge? Yi Shiwen asked. Qin Zun paused for a moment, then said, he didn't choose either. He relied on his supreme magic power to force his way in. It wasn't like it is now. It was that mysterious existence that came out of its own accord. I've read in the ancient records that the fortune creation heavenly monarch used some unknown method to force that mysterious place to come out ahead of time, and then fought his way in. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. With his current cultivation, if that mysterious existence hadn't appeared, he wouldn't have been able to sense it. However, the fortune creation heavenly monarch had used some method to force that mysterious place to come out ahead of time. What kind of terrifying ability was this? Yi Shiwen still couldn't figure out what those sovereigns were thinking, but he might understand when he reached that level. Because the 2 of them stood at different heights, it led to the difference in their horizons. Everyone, this is the eternal door left behind by the eternal sage monarch, the founder of our eternal sacred land. However, if we want to open the eternal door, we can't do it by ourselves. We need your help. The commandment heavenly monarch said, not hiding anything. In fact, in the face of such an opportunity, if they didn't need everyone's help, they wouldn't have chosen to let others participate. The fewer people who participated, the higher their chances of success. In the entire mysterious place, there are only two places that are the weakest. Apart from the eternal sacred land's eternal divine bridge, there's only one other place, the eternal door. There's only one way to open the eternal door, and that is to use all of our magic power to blast open the eternal door and kill our way out. Let's all do our best. The commandment Heaven Lord opened his mouth and shouted. His voice was like the roar of a dragon. His eyes were as deep as the Milky Way and two beams of light shot out. He was the first one to make a move. He directly turned into his Dharma idol, which was as huge as the Milky Way in the universe. He directly blasted it into the gate of eternity. Boom! The entire eternal door trembled slightly, but it only lasted for a moment before it disappeared. The eternal door seemed to be immutable and unshakable. The commandment heavenly monarch didn't care in the slightest. He attacked again, and it was another terrifying attack. After that, many celestial venerables attacked one after another. Each of them turned into a Dharma world and attacked the eternal door. Immediately afterward, an incomparably huge snake, which was thousands of miles long, slammed into the eternal door like a galaxy in the chaos. The huge body of the snake slammed into the eternal door, causing the eternal door to tremble slightly. Serpent Sovereign, he's not dead yet. I thought he'd perished in the last era. How terrifying! He must have felt the aura of the mysterious place opening and rushed over. Hiss, judging from the current situation, I don't know how many old antiques and monsters will appear. This time, I'm going to achieve the path. An incomparably loud roar was heard, followed by a huge ball of flame that crossed the chaos and directly bombarded the eternal door. Another half-step ruler. The primal chaos divine flame is still alive? Many people stared at the huge ball of flame in shock. The primal chaos divine flame wasn't a half-step ruler, but a natural flame born in the chaos. It didn't cultivate the path, but its natural foundation was terrifying and it was getting stronger and stronger. Although it wasn't a half-step ruler, its combat strength was equivalent to that of a half-step ruler. This kind of natural divine object was naturally the target of countless people. Although half-step rulers weren't interested in ordinary things, they were disdainful of them. But the primal chaos divine flame was different. Since the birth of the primal chaos divine flame, countless half-step rulers had come to capture it. There had even been earth-shattering battles. After the primal chaos divine flame, more and more experts began to appear. They all wanted to take advantage of the appearance of the mysterious place in this era and enter it in one fell swoop. They wanted to be reborn, become rulers, and stand above all others. Not all half-step rulers attacked in their true form. Many of them hid themselves and attacked from the depths of the chaos, spanning billions of miles. However, this degree of distance was nothing to them. Yi Shiwen casually counted. There were actually more than 30 half-step rulers attacking one after another. The number of experts in this world was unimaginable. And this didn't include the experts gathered at the ancient divine bridge. So many experts appeared together, and their goal was the eternal door. At this time, Qin Zun also made his move. He transformed into a figure that was tens of thousands of meters tall. A huge green lotus appeared under his feet. This green lotus bloomed in the chaos. As it bloomed, all kinds of magic and the great path flowed out from it, turning into light that filled the sky. Then, it gathered into a terrifying sword. The sword light swept across the chaos, tearing it apart. The sword light tore through everything, and at the same time, annihilated everything, and blasted into the eternal door. Yi Shiwen paused for a moment, then attacked as well. He transformed into a Dharma world, then flipped his palm, and a universe creation palm descended, directly blasting into the eternal door. Boom! The eternal door trembled slightly. Chapter 38-32. These half-step rulers and peak celestial venerables were all terrifying characters. They were supreme existences that had ruled over an epoch. But now they were going all out just to open the eternal gate. It was easy to imagine how frightening this scene was. At the same time, it showed the gap between half-step rulers and rulers. A ruler could enter that mysterious place by himself, but with the help of the eternal gate, these people had to gather everyone's strength to achieve this. And they had to take advantage of the moment when the mysterious place was at its weakest. The gap was clear at a glance. What everyone needed to do now was to break through this gap. Not every epoch would have a ruler, and not every time the mysterious place appeared, someone would become a ruler. The chances were small, but it was better than no chance at all. Everyone knew that the current era's experts had the highest chance of breaking through to ruler. The half-step rulers from ancient eras had to take this unorthodox path to become a ruler. Moreover, the current era already had a peerless genius like the fortune-creation heavenly monarch, who seized the fortune of heaven and earth. This was not an adjective to describe his talent, but a fact. He alone had seized the fortune of heaven and earth, blocking others' path to Tao. Only one such character was allowed to appear in a single epoch. Even though Qin Zun could cultivate to the peak of the half-step ruler realm and stand shoulder to shoulder with a peerless expert like the disciplined heavenly monarch, he still had to fight for this opportunity. The path of the great Tao had never become wider the further one walked, but narrower the further one walked. The further one went, the narrower the path would become. Those who had reached this step could be considered the peak of billions of living beings. However, it was precisely because of this that their path was too difficult to walk. Half-step rulers wasted more than a dozen epochs before dying of old age. Everyone was shocked and wanted to break this fate. Although there were cases of rulers dying, it was much better than these half-step rulers. Yi Shiwen was the same. Yi Shiwen was also the same. Others wanted that opportunity, but he also wanted that opportunity. Therefore, he absolutely wouldn't give up this time. A series of attacks from the peak experts continued for 10 days and 10 nights. Finally, a hole appeared in the eternal gate. The appearance of this hole caused many experts' eyes to brighten. Everyone, this is the final moment. Just opening such a small hole is not enough. Please give it your all. The commandment Heavenly Lord's voice rang out. Everyone became even crazier. Everyone was doing their best. The opening grew larger and larger until it finally opened. Countless chains of laws flew out of the eternal sacred land and swarmed to the opening, sealing it in place. Every minute, there would be an infinite amount of energy passing through these divine chains of laws and pouring into the opening. Only by doing so could the opening be maintained and not collapse on the spot. Yi Shiwen and Qin Zun glanced at each other, understanding the worry in each other's eyes. The entrance to the mysterious place was maintained by the eternal sacred land, which meant that their lives were in the hands of the sacred land. If the eternal sacred land refused to maintain the seal, they would all be trapped in the mysterious place. The dangers involved were self-evident. For top powerhouses like them, none of them were willing to entrust their own safety to others. But at this moment, he had no choice. If he didn't go through the eternal gate, did he have to go through the eternal God bridge? That was even more dangerous. They didn't have any other choice. Moreover, Yi Shiwen could also see that a massive amount of resources were being burned every second in order to maintain this opening. It wasn't something that an ordinary force could support at all. A super sect or clan wouldn't be able to sustain it for long before going bankrupt. There were only 3 factions in the present world that could sustain such an expenditure: the Eternal Sacred Land, the Eternal Sacred Land, and the reunified Fortune Divine Dynasty. However, even if the Fortune Divine Dynasty had launched such a hasty attack without any prior preparations, it would still suffer a great deal of damage to their foundation. The mysterious place wouldn't appear for long. There was no point in going back to reorganize the Fortune Divine Dynasty's forces. Even if he could, where would he find so many experts? The current era was the enemy of almost all the ancient eras. Thus, they had no other choice. Since there was no other choice, there was no need for further consideration. The commandment Heavenly Lord was the first to step out of the group. He stepped onto a rainbow bridge and rushed into the opening. The others reacted immediately. Whether they were half-step sovereigns or heavenly venerables, they all flew into the opening. Yi Shiwen and Qin Zun were equally matched. They rushed into the opening almost at the same time. Yi Shiwen had just entered this big hole, and suddenly felt that he had entered a boundless world. There was no one around him at this time. He only needed to think for a moment to understand. When they came in, they were directly separated. The space at the entrance was directly divided into many paths. So, no matter who came in first, they were directly separated and tired. He took another look, and sure enough, the space and time here were all terrifyingly chaotic. Before taking a step, time flowed normally, but after taking a step, time flowed 100 times faster than normal. After taking another step, time flowed 100-fold faster than normal. After taking another step, time flowed 100th faster than normal. The space was even more chaotic. Every step was different. There were many places where the space was distorted. There were even more places where the space was sliced apart. It was very common for people to be decapitated after they entered the space and took a step out. This environment was extreme and terrifying. Even peak heavenly venerables had to be careful here. If they were not careful, they would die a horrible death. Only half-step sovereigns could move smoothly. But they had to be careful of the changes in space and time. In particular, not only was space and time chaotic, but there were also violent thunderstorms in some places. Some places were filled with astral winds that could blow people into ashes. In short, this place was extremely violent. Even heavenly venerables would find it difficult to survive here. How can the environment here be so harsh? It's like the legendary creation of the world. Yi Shiwen frowned. Each time a great era changed, when a new heavenly Tao was born, it would always be this terrifying. There would be fatal dangers everywhere, new natural laws being born. The new heavenly Tao was berserk and boundless, not suitable for creatures to live in at all. At that time, even the top experts of the ancient era would not dare to enter the new era. It was tantamount to seeking their own death. The environment here was almost like a place where heaven and earth were split apart, because there was no heavenly Tao controlling everything. The heavenly Tao was like a butler, managing all kinds of rules and affairs in an orderly manner. Is this mysterious place actually an era that hasn't been born yet? Yi Shiwen frowned. But thinking about it, he felt that it was impossible. This mysterious place had existed for countless years. More than 1 or 2 sovereigns had come here. How could it be an era that hadn't been born yet? That didn't make sense at all. Logically speaking, after so many years, or even so many eras, it should have been born long ago. There were too many things that even Yi Shiwen couldn't distinguish clearly. However, as soon as he entered this place, he could feel that the mysterious space in his body, which had not had much of a reaction before, was actually flashing with dazzling light. It was just constantly swallowing the energy that he sent into it, and then analyzing all kinds of principles for him. It was actually shining with dazzling light, illuminating his inner world. He had a feeling that this mysterious space was resonating with something. Yi Shiwen had an idea. He immediately followed the direction that the mysterious space was resonating with and followed his intuition. Soon, as Yi Shiwen went deeper and deeper into this mysterious place, he understood why both heavenly masters and half-step sovereigns used this place as a place to find opportunities to break through. Because not long after he went out, he encountered a ball of purple heaven thunderbolt. Purple heaven thunderbolt was the ancestor of all lightning. According to legend, It would only appear before the world was born and was extremely precious. Even Yi Shiwen had only heard of this kind of purple heaven thunderbolt, but he had never seen it before. If a heavenly master who specialized in lightning techniques obtained this ball of purple heaven thunderbolt, he would only need 10,000 years to step from the heavenly master realm to the peak heavenly master realm. Yi Shiwen immediately reached out and grabbed the ball of purple heaven thunderbolt, refining it on the spot. Ordinary heavenly masters would need 10,000 years to refine a part of it, but Yi Shiwen's current cultivation could be said to be unfathomable, comparable to a peak half-step sovereign. He had only refined it for a day and a night, and he had completely refined this ball of purple heaven thunderbolt. Suddenly, the lightning Dao law in his body had been greatly improved, becoming one of the strongest great Daos among his 3,000 martial Daos. This was a heavenly treasure that couldn't be bought with money. After refining the purple heaven divine thunder, Yi Shiwen continued to walk inside, but soon, he stopped again. This time, the reason why he stopped was because he came across a huge ancient character. This character was an incomparably huge seal character. This seal was tens of millions of feet wide, and this character was formed from the complete seal word. Just this word alone seemed to describe all the sealing law in the world, no matter what era the sealing law was from, as if it could be found and reflected here. Yi Shiwen was also very good at the Tao of sealing, so he had a very deep understanding of the Tao of sealing. He was even more shocked by the power of this seal word. Yi Shiwen immediately grabbed the seal word in his hand. Chapter 38-33. When Yi Shiwen's big hand reached out to grab it, the seal character suddenly blossomed with astonishing rays of light. It wanted to block Yi Shiwen's grasp, and sealed everything in the surroundings in an instant. Whether it was space, time, or everything else, everything had been sealed by it. Yi Shiwen couldn't move forward at all. If it was an ordinary heavenly venerable or even an ordinary half-step ruler, it would be difficult for them to do anything. But Yi Shiwen was different. He was a powerful existence. Even if an ordinary half-step ruler stood in front of him, it would only be a possibility for them to be hung up and beaten. Almost in an instant, he broke free from the seal and grabbed the seal in his hand. Yi Shiwen began to refine it. It took him 3 days to finally refine this seal character. It transformed into a seal character and integrated into his body. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. This seal was extremely powerful. It was even comparable to the 7th metal ancestral chi he obtained before. If he used it now, it wouldn't be a problem to directly seal an ordinary half-step ruler. If he had the strength to hang up and beat an ordinary half-step ruler before, then with this seal, he could even instantly kill an ordinary half-step ruler. The other party wouldn't even be able to react before they died. This harvest was so great that it was even greater than the heavenly thunder of purple cloud. I haven't been here for long, but I've already obtained 2 rare treasures. This place is really extraordinary. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. No wonder so many people wanted to fight their way in. This mysterious place was really extraordinary. Yi Shiwen continued to walk forward. He kept encountering all kinds of spatial faults and terrifying scenes of time flowing like a river. However, none of them could stop his footsteps. They only slowed down his pace. In this place, even Yi Shiwen didn't dare to act recklessly. If he wasn't careful and walked too fast, he would enter an extremely dangerous place. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. This was a place where even Dominator rank experts would fight to enter. He didn't believe that there wasn't anything special about this place. Therefore, he had to be careful. In this place, even a half-step ruler could die if he wasn't careful. However, Yi Shiwen's luck seemed to be limited to this. For the next month, he didn't encounter anything similar to the purple heaven divine thunder or that huge seal character. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He had long since prepared for this. If he could casually encounter them, then those half-step sovereigns and heavenly venerables wouldn't need to fight over them. Wouldn't it be perfect if everyone had a share? Just these two items alone were enough for him to have two peak Empyreans. In particular, the purple cloud thunderbolt could create a top-notch expert. The word seal was even more impressive. He was still following the feeling he got from the mysterious space and heading towards the depths of this mysterious place. He had a feeling that this would be his harvest. This was related to whether or not he could step into the half-step sovereign realm, and whether or not he could break through to the sovereign realm. As he walked, his heart was also analyzing what the mysterious space was, and how it was related to this mysterious place. Yi Shiwen pondered as he walked. All kinds of terrifying danger zones didn't pose any threat to him. Along the way, he encountered a group of Empyreans. These Empyreans were trapped in a river of time, unable to move an inch. They had to endure the rapid flow of time. If this continued, even an immortal Empyrean would die of old age in a situation where the flow of time was hundreds or thousands of times faster. It was terrifying. However, Yi Shiwen didn't plan to save them. He just quietly passed by them. They didn't even know that he had passed by them. As time passed, Yi Shiwen picked up a fragment of the time crystal. This fragment of the time crystal was very terrifying. Yi Shiwen felt that his lifespan had decreased by millions of years the moment he came into contact with this fragment of the time crystal. And this was only for a moment. Originally, at his level of cultivation, he didn't feel the flow of time. Although Empyreans and half-step sovereigns had lifespans limited, it was measured in epochs. Under normal circumstances, it was difficult to feel the flow of time. Ordinary time attacks could affect the surroundings of heavenly venerables and half-step sovereigns, but they couldn't affect the bodies of these extreme experts because they had completely jumped out of the river of time. Since they weren't in this river, time had no effect on them. But that wasn't an absolute situation. 1,000,000 years of lifespan was consumed in an instant. One could imagine how terrifying this time crystal was. In the end, Yi Shiwen used the world tree to suppress this time crystal, completely refining it. Even so, it directly wasted 100,000,000 years of lifespan. For the current Yi Shiwen, losing 100,000,000 years of lifespan was painful, but it was still within the range of toleration. If this time crystal was used well, it would become a trump card. As Yi Shiwen went deeper into the mysterious land, he could feel the chaos of the laws. All kinds of terrifying and extreme environments emerged one after another. In the end, even Yi Shiwen had to wear the good fortune treasure robe to avoid any mishaps. At this point, he wouldn't encounter Empyreans anymore. Empyreans couldn't reach this point. Not everyone had the luck of the commandment Heavenly Lord. Finally, on this day, he saw a large rain of light scattering in the air, sparkling and translucent, filling up the entire space of the mysterious place. At the end of the light rain, which was also the source of the light rain, was a huge stone tablet. There was only one word on the stone tablet, and that was a giant Tao character. This giant Tao character had been imprinted on the stone tablet by some unknown method. Apart from that, there was nothing else. At this time, in front of the stone tablet, there was a dense crowd of half-step sovereigns. These half-step sovereigns had different expressions and even different body shapes, but there was one thing they had in common. They were all exuding shocking strength. They had turned the place they were at into a domain, directly isolating themselves from others to prevent others from sneaking up on them. Yi Shiwen immediately understood that they were all comprehending the Tao. This Tao character had such a great charm. These half-step sovereigns came from different eras, different forces, and yet they were all able to gain something. This made him think of something, and he hurried over. Chapter 38-34. Many half-step rulers gathered in front of the Tao stele, trying to comprehend the last word. What was the Tao? It was extremely mysterious, and no one knew. Everyone could comprehend a part of the Tao that belonged to them. This was the principle behind the 3,000 great Taos, all leading to the highest. Yi Shiwen's arrival immediately attracted many people's attention. However, it was clear that everyone was doing their best to comprehend the great Tao on the Tao stele. Yi Shiwen even saw the half-moon immortal lord among them. After more than 100,000 years of recovery, he had actually recovered to his peak. When he saw Yi Shiwen, he glared angrily, but he did not attack. It was not appropriate to do so here. Yi Shiwen did not care about him. More than 100,000 years ago, when he faced the half-moon immortal lord, it was like he was facing a great enemy. He had used all his strength and almost died before he managed to block the half-moon immortal lord. But now, to him, killing the half-moon immortal lord was no more difficult than killing the heaven-swallowing divine lord. After more than 100,000 years, the half-moon immortal lord had only recovered to his peak, but Yi Shiwen had long since surpassed that line. He looked around. It was clear that the area around the Tao stele was divided into three groups. One was the eternal sacred land, led by the disciplined heavenly lord. The other was the eternal sacred land, which also had a terrifying existence with a tyrannical aura that was no weaker than the disciplined heavenly lords. However, Yi Shiwen was no longer ignorant. In the past 10 years, he had discussed the Tao with Qin Zun, and he had gained a lot of information. This was likely the current leader of the eternal sacred land. His name was Divine Lord Tian Fa. The power of lightning that surged from his body had reached an unimaginable level. The power of lightning itself was the heavenly punishment power of the heavenly Tao of countless epochs. Now that Divine Lord Tian Fa had refined the heavenly punishment for his own use, he had reached an unimaginable level. Yi Shiwen paid special attention to Divine Lord Tian Fa. If the eternal sacred land represented by the disciplined heavenly lord was the hidden enemy of the martial epoch, then the eternal sacred land led by Divine Lord Tian Fa was the obvious enemy. Yi Shiwen wanted to protect the martial epoch, while the eternal sacred land wanted to destroy it. Both sides were fighting for survival, and this conflict could not be resolved. Yi Shiwen only glanced at him a little longer, but Divine Lord Tian Fa immediately sensed it and turned to look at Yi Shiwen. Those eyes were so cold and emotionless, as if the heavens were looking at an ant. However, he only glanced at it for a moment before shifting his gaze back to the Tao character tablet. Aside from the two holy lands, there were also many half-step rulers from the ancient epochs. Qin Zun was one of them. Yi Shiwen glanced at it and sat down cross-legged. He then tried his best to analyze this Tao character. The mysterious space within his body shook violently. It seemed as if it was resonating with something. Boundless seven-colored radiance blossomed. In the next moment, Yi Shiwen clearly felt that a lot of information suddenly poured into his mind. A lot of information about the Great Way poured into his mind. That was not the martial epoch's great Tao but the primal chaos great Tao, like the general outline of all great Tao. The martial epoch's great Tao was a branch of this primal chaos great Tao. In fact, many epochs were branches of the great Tao of chaos, and these branches had evolved into brilliant epochs and civilizations. Yi Shiwen even had a feeling that the mysterious space that had taken root in his body was about to leave his body and fuse with the steel. Yi Shiwen hurriedly adjusted his power to suppress the strange movements of the mysterious space within his body. That feeling became more and more intense. He already understood that his opportunity to achieve Tao was right in front of him. As long as he could obtain this Tao character tablet, his breakthrough would be right in front of his eyes. However, it was clear that everyone was using this Tao character tablet to comprehend the great Tao. If he snatched this Tao character tablet away, he would become everyone's enemy. He didn't care if it was one or two enemies. Even if he had to face big shots like the disciplined Heavenly Lord or the Divine Lord of Tian Fa, he wouldn't be afraid. However, if he had to face everyone, it would be a different story. The road ahead was filled with terror, but also great rewards. He might die, but if he didn't die, he would achieve Tao. Yi Shiwen hesitated for a long time. It wasn't easy for anyone to reach this step. However, he knew that his Tao and his opportunity were here. Once he achieved Tao, he would exist for eternity without fear. If he failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. He would die. It was easy to say, but there were very few people who could actually do it. I'll go all out. If I can't achieve Tao, I'd rather die. Yi Shiwen finally made a decision. He had hesitated and felt lost before, but once he made up his mind, he became incomparably firm. He took a step forward almost instantly and turned into a stream of light, flying towards the Tao character tablet. The other half-step sovereigns saw his movements almost instantly. However, they only sneered disdainfully, thinking that Yi Shiwen was overestimating himself. In fact, he wasn't the first to do so. He wasn't the only smart person. However, they all failed in the end. Before they could even get close to the tablet, they were all knocked out. A terrifying power erupted from the Tao character tablet. Some people guessed that it wasn't just a stone tablet. It might even be a Tao tool. It was just that they didn't know when it was set up. Therefore, although they saw it, they didn't stop it. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen would definitely fail. However, the truth was beyond their expectations. The moment Yi Shiwen approached, the Tao character tablet erupted with an unparalleled 7-colored light. However, it didn't blast Yi Shiwen away. Instead, it wrapped him up. The mysterious space within Yi Shiwen's body flew out and flew into the Tao character tablet. In an instant, a strange phenomenon occurred. Countless dazzling lights flew out and filled the entire space. It was as if the entire world was going to be cleansed. Everyone was stunned. This scene was completely out of their expectations. Then, they only saw Yi Shiwen extend his hand and absorb the Tao character tablet into his inner world. In an instant, all the strange phenomena disappeared. The half-step sovereigns were also interrupted from their state of comprehension. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen, glaring angrily. "How dare you?" One of the half-step sovereigns shouted. Although he didn't know how Yi Shiwen did it, he dared to take everything for himself. This was a taboo. To them, this was intolerable. Taoist Wu Zun, I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to act like this. Hand over the Tao character tablet. The Commandment Lord of Heaven spoke. His expression was incomparably cold. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to take the Tao character tablet in the end. Why are you wasting your breath on him? How dare he occupy the Tao character tablet by himself? I think his arrogance has no limit. Just kill him. The Divine Punishment Lord's voice was like thunder. It burst out with a sky full of lightning. From afar, it was extremely terrifying. The other half-step sovereigns also glared at Yi Shiwen. They wanted to tear him to pieces. Even Qin Zun didn't expect Yi Shiwen to do this. He couldn't understand why Yi Shiwen would do this. He didn't believe that Yi Shiwen was blinded by lard. Stealing the Tao character tablet was equivalent to going against everyone. It was simply courting death. However, he didn't act rashly. He wanted to figure out why Yi Shiwen was doing this. Wu Zun, hand over the Tao character tablet and everything can be discussed. Otherwise, when I destroy the martial epic and exterminate the human race, it will be too late for you to regret it. The Divine Punishment Lord said coldly, when that time comes, your wife, daughter, relatives, and disciples will not be able to leave. They will all receive my heavenly punishment. Yi Shiwen looked coldly at the Divine Punishment Lord and said, if I don't hand it over, what can you do to me? The murderous intent in his heart surged. Then die. The Divine Punishment Lord shouted coldly. Good, good, good. I want to see if you have the ability to do so. To you, this is just a way for you to comprehend the Tao. To me, it's the foundation for achieving the Tao. Whoever tries to stop me from achieving the Tao will be my mortal enemy. I must kill them. Yi Shiwen's words were filled with murderous intent. Immediately, many half-step sovereigns wanted to retreat. He wasn't a small fry. On the contrary, He was a peerless god of death. The number of half-step sovereigns who had died at his hands numbered at least 10. The number of people who had died because of him was even greater. It was fine to just be enemies with such a person. However, if they became mortal enemies, it would be quite terrifying. Just as Yi Shiwen had said, the Tao character tablet was just a way for them to comprehend the Tao. It wasn't the foundation for them to achieve the Tao. However, to Yi Shiwen, it was related to him achieving the Tao. Whoever stood in front of him would have to fight to the death. If it were them, they would also fight to the death. Obstructing someone from achieving the Tao was like killing one's parent. It was a blood feud. Was it worth it for them to fight Yi Shiwen to the death for a Tao character tablet? They didn't doubt Yi Shiwen's words. If it wasn't for the true foundation for achieving the Tao, why would Yi Shiwen risk offending all the half-step sovereigns in the world to take the Tao character tablet? Most importantly, they couldn't understand how Yi Shiwen could take the Tao character tablet. Could it be that there was something they didn't know? Although Yi Shiwen's words scared some of the half-step sovereigns, there were some who weren't. At this moment, the half-moon immortal lord stepped forward and said, "Everyone, did you hear that? This is his foundation for achieving the Tao. He is the martial epoc's sovereign. Just the current him is already so difficult to deal with. If he achieves the Tao, how can we survive? Who among you ancient epochs can withstand an attack from a sovereign?" At this moment, the half-moon immortal lord stepped forward and said. Chapter 38-35. Many people from the ancient epochs reacted when they heard this. Although the current martial epoch was terrifying, they did not feel despair. The replacement of the world and the cycle of the epochs was a glorious great Tao. No one could stop it. However, if Yi Shiwen broke through further, it would be horrifying. Yi Shiwen had already displayed a strong offensive ability and a vengeful personality. He had destroyed many epochs that participated in the siege of the martial epoch, not to mention a powerful epoch like the ghost epoch. At that time, Yi Shiwen would definitely seek revenge for the slightest grievance, and wouldn't yield even an inch. If he was allowed to make further breakthroughs, then what kind of terrifying scene would that be? Many people looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of murderous intention in their eyes. Although Yi Shiwen was strong now, they could still endure it. After all, Yi Shiwen was strong but not above them. It was just like how there were weak and strong heavenly venerables. However, if a half-step ruler appeared among the heavenly venerables, everything would change. No matter how few half-step rulers there were, heavenly venerables could not match them. Although Yi Shiwen was only a heavenly venerable, he was already stronger than the majority of half-step sovereigns. If they allowed him to break through, wouldn't they die? At that time, wouldn't they be at Yi Shiwen's mercy? Although they had come to find an opportunity to become rulers, it was not that simple. Before they found it, Yi Shiwen found it first. Such a threat forced them to seriously consider how horrifying Yi Shiwen would be after he achieved the Tao. Half-Moon Immortal Lord, is it really okay for you to incite others like this? If you want to stop me, you can be the first to come. Yi Shiwen looked coldly at the Half-Moon Immortal Lord. He knew that it was impossible to fight everyone at the same time. He could only kill the chicken to warn the monkey. He looked at the Half-Moon Immortal Lord with murderous intent. At this moment, everyone looked at the Half-Moon Immortal Lord. It was as Yi Shiwen said, the Half-Moon Immortal Lord was indeed a suspect of inciting others. Half-Moon Immortal Lord was in a difficult position. He hated Yi Shiwen for a long time, but he had heard of Yi Shiwen's fearsome reputation in the past hundreds of thousands of years, and his battle achievements were unparalleled. He did not have much confidence in taking down Yi Shiwen. The best way was to incite others to charge at Yi Shiwen. With so many rulers present, taking down Yi Shiwen wouldn't be a problem at all. He was dead for sure. He didn't expect that Yi Shiwen wouldn't play his cards according to common sense. He didn't fight against everyone and just singled him out. This was also in line with other people's thinking. No one was willing to be used as a tool, but everyone was willing to use others as a tool. However, if he didn't step forward, it would mean that Yi Shiwen had instigated everyone to step forward. Then, the situation would be even worse. He would offend all the powerhouses, and his future days would be miserable. He stepped forward and said, "Wu Zun, if you don't hand over the Tao inscription tablet, you won't be able to leave this place today. Although achieving the Tao is important, is it more important that you survive?" Wu, Yi demied and looked at the half-moon immortal lord, and said, Wu martial emperor, Wu martial saint. Make your move. I didn't manage to kill you 100,000 years ago, but today I can conveniently kill you here. When the half-moon immortal lord heard this, he immediately became enraged. Yi Shiwen had poked at his sore spot. More than 100,000 years ago, he had suffered a crushing defeat, nearly getting killed by the martial epic's heavenly Tao. This was the humiliation of his life. Now Yi Shiwen brought it up again. His rage could be easily imagined. "Since you are seeking death, I will send you on your way." The half-moon immortal lord took a step forward. In an instant, boundless, horrifying energy spread out. In just a moment it filled the entire place. His entire body glowed, as if he was the sole ruler of the world. At this moment, the other half-step rulers quickly retreated to avoid getting caught up in the battle. However, they did not scatter randomly. Instead, they formed a circle and surrounded Yi Shiwen. Clearly, they did not intend to let Yi Shiwen go this time. They were just using the half-moon immortal lord as a spear, letting him test Yi Shiwen's trump cards and strength. However, Shao Chun sighed in his heart. The half-moon immortal lord was indeed strong. His fame spread throughout the primal chaos for so many years was not for nothing. Such strength already surpassed most half-step rulers. Otherwise, he would not have been able to control that situation 100,000 years ago. You are no different from how you were more than 100,000 years ago. Unexpectedly, you managed to recover from such severe injuries. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. That's right. I lost that battle. However, I want to see who can save you this time. If you are capable, summon the martial epic's heavenly Tao again. The half-moon immortal lord said with a cold smile. He had lost that time, but he was not convinced. He had been tricked. In the end, he did not lose to Yi Shiwen but to the martial epic's heavenly Tao. If not for the martial epic's heavenly Tao suddenly appearing, the half-moon immortal lord was confident of grinding Yi Shiwen to death. Indeed, you are still the same as you were more than 100,000 years ago. However, I am no longer the me from more than 100,000 years ago. Yi Shiwen sighed. His entire body glowed, and countless beams of light shot out from his body. At this moment, he looked like a golden god of war descending upon the world. It has only been more than 100,000 years. What can you do? It is just that time has no heroes. That is why a brat like you became famous. The half-moon immortal lord roared. He held a dazzling full moon in his left hand, radiating boundless moonlight as though he had borrowed the power of the entire world. Then, he suddenly smashed it down at Yi Shiwen. Everyone could see the primal chaos crumbling wherever this full moon passed. Space turned to dust, and time vanished into nothingness. Such an attack was simply too horrifying. The half-moon immortal lord clearly did not hold back. He was confident, but he also knew that his opponent was not easy to deal with. Yi Shiwen was expressionless in the face of this situation. He just took a step forward, and suddenly the entire space rumbled and trembled as if it was about to collapse. One could imagine how terrifying this step of Yi Shiwen was. Yi Shiwen simply pointed his finger, and this finger instantly penetrated the round full moon that was crushing down towards him. Boom! The real full moon that seemed to have taken shape exploded on the spot, turning into nothingness. The half-moon immortal lord's all-out attack could not block Yi Shiwen's finger. Everyone was dumbfounded, as though they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. How is this possible? The half-moon immortal lord's eyes widened in disbelief. He had not underestimated his opponent in the slightest, nor had he held back. Even an ordinary half-step ruler would be severely injured and die if struck by this attack. However, Yi Shiwen had broken his attack with just one finger. Yi Shiwen's counterattack came immediately after. Universe Creation Palm. Yi Shiwen's palm came crashing down. The entire universe was contained within this palm, and it turned into a terrifying attack that descended ruthlessly. The half-moon immortal lord only felt that with every inch that this palm descended, its power would increase by a lot. Inch by inch, its power would increase by a lot. How can it be so strong? The half-moon immortal lord immediately sensed the terror of this palm. If he was struck by this palm, the consequences would be unimaginable. He hurriedly launched a series of attacks that drowned Yi Shiwen's palm like a torrent. At this moment, it was already too late for him to even escape. As the palm descended, it formed a heaven and earth palm, directly cutting off all possible escape routes for him. However, these terrifying attacks were completely useless at this moment. All of them were suppressed into nothingness. In the face of this palm, everything was useless. This was the most terrifying thing about it. Although it seemed like a long time, it only took a short instant. The universe creation palm had already landed on the half-moon immortal lord's body. Bang! There was a loud sound as if it had hit metal. The half-moon immortal lord screamed miserably, and his body exploded instantly. Blood sprayed everywhere like a rain of blood. Heavily injured in one move, many people's eyes widened. Perhaps they had estimated Yi Shiwen's strength before, but no matter how they had estimated it, they had never expected Yi Shiwen to be so terrifying. Their estimation of Yi Shiwen's strength was based on the strength he had displayed during his expedition to the primal chaos 100,000 years ago. At that time, Yi Shiwen's strength was enough to defeat ordinary half-step rulers. However, it was not so easy to injure a half-step ruler in one move. Moreover, it was an elite half-step ruler like the half-moon immortal lord. What had Yi Shiwen experienced in the past 100,000 years? Among these people, only Qin Zun had a calm expression. He had already expected this. The half-moon immortal lord's strength was only on par with the Heaven Swallower immortal lord. The Heaven Swallower immortal lord had suffered a crushing defeat at Yi Shiwen's hands without being able to retaliate. The half-moon immortal lord would not fare any better now. Yi Shiwen dared to become enemies with the world because he was confident. He was not completely impulsive. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, unrelenting, and wanted to kill the half-moon immortal lord. At this time, the heavenly punishment immortal lord finally could not bear it any longer. Although his relationship with the half-moon immortal lord was not particularly good, and they were still rivals in the eternal sacred ground, he could not just watch as Yi Shiwen killed the half-moon immortal lord. A bolt of 9 heavens lightning descended from the sky. It was thousands of meters long and tens of thousands of meters thick. It drowned the sky and earth, intending to kill Yi Shiwen and obstruct his attack. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would open his mouth and swallow the 9th heaven's divine thunder in one fell swoop? The attack turned into nothingness, and the revered martial seal fell from his hand. Ah! The half-moon immortal lord screamed. His primordial spirit was struck, and his soul dispersed instantly. Chapter 38-36. The entire space was silent. It seemed as if everyone was frightened by this scene. Perhaps they had never thought that Yi Shiwen would dare to kill people like this. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, there was no chance for them to react at all. Before this, everyone thought that they had already overestimated Yi Shiwen. Even if the half-moon immortal lord was not a match for Yi Shiwen, it was merely a defeat. Everyone was watching and surrounding Yi Shiwen. Could they really let him kill them? However, the reality still left them completely dumbfounded. First, they were dumbfounded that Yi Shiwen dared to kill them. Second, they were dumbfounded that Yi Shiwen actually possessed such strength. If anyone wants to be like him, then go ahead, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. His voice was not loud, but it was like a heavy hammer that hammered into everyone's hearts. After the previous incident of killing the half-moon immortal lord, no one would underestimate the meaning behind Yi Shiwen's words. No one would think that Yi Shiwen could not kill them in front of everyone. Therefore, they immediately hesitated. No one wanted to stand out, and no one wanted to be used by others. "I'll kill you!" Tian Fa Immortal Lord was not afraid at all. His entire body was radiating light, and even his spirit was crystal clear. He looked extremely frightening. A terrifying aura swept out. He had suffered a great loss at Yi Shiwen's hands previously. Now, he wanted to get his revenge. The entire space was stirred up by his aura. This scene was somewhat terrifying and shocking. Even the powerful half-step sovereigns used their cultivation to resist it to prevent themselves from being affected. However, they were still unwilling to leave. They were unwilling to let Yi Shiwen go just like that. Since someone had already stood out, there was nothing for them to worry about. Kill me? That depends on whether you have the ability to do so, Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. He was not afraid at all. As soon as he finished speaking, the Divine Lord of Divine Punishment had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. The Divine Punishment Great Path that he cultivated could be said to be the strongest will of the Great Path. With a long roar, his figure suppressed the surroundings. Instantly, everyone felt an immense pressure that filled the entire world. It was an endless sea of thunder that instantly unfolded, collapsing the universe and destroying the world. The endless sea of thunder was the most terrifying attack. There were rumbling sounds everywhere, and it came crushing down. That was the light of the Great Path, and it annihilated Yi Shiwen. "Just this level alone won't be enough to kill me." Along with Yi Shiwen's cold voice, an inexhaustible amount of qi and blood soared into the sky in an instant. It seemed as if it had transformed into a boundless ocean, and it was contending against the sea of thunder. They were confronting each other. Then, Yi Shiwen's figure walked out of the endless sea of lightning and looked coldly at Tian Fa Immortal Lord. At this moment, within Yi Shiwen's body, Yi Shiwen's mysterious space had completely merged with the Tao steel. There was no distinction between them. It was as if it had been like this from the beginning. As the mysterious space and the Tao steel merged into one, more and more information swept into Yi Shiwen's mind like a torrent. Yi Shiwen immediately understood the origin of this mysterious space. This mysterious space was actually the Tao steel's tool spirit. This Tao word steel was the general outline of all the great Tao in the world. No matter which epoch it belonged to, the great Tao derived from this Tao word steel was derived from the general outline of the great Tao, including the great Tao of the martial epoch. No wonder Yi Shiwen could use the mysterious space to analyze the Tao of any era. Turned out that all the Tao in the world originated from this Tao steel. Every time an era changed and the heavenly Tao reincarnated, the Tao steel would spit out a Tao and integrate it into the new era's heavenly Tao, becoming the main Tao of that era's heavenly Tao. Last time, when the martial epoch was born, many sovereigns had fought over it, and the Tao steel's artifact spirit had been sent flying. After the Tao steel's artifact spirit had been sent flying, it had transformed into a mysterious space, which Yi Shiwen had later obtained. And now, Yi Shiwen had returned the Tao inscription steel's tool spirit back to its original position. It was a matter of time. At the same time, he understood what this Tao steel meant. It could be said that mastering this Tao steel was equivalent to mastering the Tao, the 3000 Chaos Tao. The rulers of the ancient eras had fought their way in one after another. In fact, they were looking for this Tao steel. Only those who possessed this Tao steel could become the true creator of the chaos. It was just that those rulers had not been able to find the Tao steel. Unexpectedly, it appeared in front of these half-step rulers. This was not a coincidence. Yi Shiwen had been attracted by the tool spirit when he had entered this mysterious place. In other words, it was that mysterious space. That was why he appeared and was found by those half-step rulers. Yi Shiwen understood many of the causes and consequences, but at the same time, he felt a great sense of crisis. This was because those rulers had entered this mysterious place one after another to find this Tao steel. They wanted to truly master the 3000 Chaos Tao and become the only creator of the entire chaos. Yi Shiwen, who possessed this Tao steel, would undoubtedly become a thorn in their side. Even Yi Shiwen didn't dare to say whether those formidable rulers were on their way here or not. There were all kinds of spatial faults here, and the long river of time had isolated all auras. However, he couldn't guarantee that the other rulers wouldn't find out about the existence of the Tao inscription stele through other means. When that happened, he would not only be the public enemy of the half-step rulers, but also the rulers. He was not afraid of becoming the public enemy of the half-step rulers, but if he became the public enemy of the rulers, he might very well die. Therefore, he did not have much time left. At that moment, when he looked at Tian Fa Divine Lord again, he did not conceal his blatant killing intent. Divine Lord Tian Fa saw the look in Yi Shiwen's eyes and could not help but be furious. Yi Shiwen actually dared to have killing intent towards him. I think you really have a death wish. The inexhaustible power of thunder transformed into a long thunder spear, and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen opened his eyes all of a sudden, and an inexhaustible amount of blood and vitality surged out of his body. Compared to before, his aura had actually risen by several levels. Around him, the runes of the talisman Taoism danced in the sky and circled around him. In an instant it turned into a terrifying storm. Yi Shiwen entered the state of human one. His entire body instantly became incomparably terrifying, like a berserk monster. This was just the beginning, but the entire space was already collapsing. What? Divine Lord Tian Fa was not prepared for Yi Shiwen to suddenly enter this state. His strength had suddenly become much more terrifying. There's not much time left. Hurry up and finish you. Yi Shiwen's voice became even more terrifying and cold. You? Divine Lord Tian Fa roared. He was extremely furious, but just as he finished speaking, he saw that Yi Shiwen had unknowingly appeared in front of him. The exuberant blood surged as though it could destroy the entire chaotic universe. Bam! Divine Lord Tian Fa did not even have time to react before he was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's punch. Even without entering the state of human one, Yi Shiwen's strength could be considered the pinnacle of half-step rulers. He could be compared to Divine Lord Tian Fa and Commandment Heavenly Lord. If that was the case, he would need to go through a lot of trouble to defeat Divine Lord Tian Fa and Commandment Heavenly Lord. But it was different now. After entering the state of human one, his strength had soared tremendously. Divine Lord Tian Fa's body was covered in dense cracks from the punch. In the past, Yi Shiwen's strength was already terrifying and unimaginable. However, people also noticed that cracks had also appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen had just entered the state of human conformity with one and had just thrown a punch, but Yi Shiwen was also injured. It could be said that both sides were injured. Everyone was scared and retreated far away. However, they didn't disperse the encirclement around Yi Shiwen. After all, it was impossible for them to give up on the Tao inscription stele with this level of encirclement. They were even more puzzled. They did not understand why Yi Shiwen would choose such a self-destructive method. It was obvious that even if he defeated Divine Lord Tian Fa in such a way, he would not be able to get past them. Could it be that he's really crazy? Everyone was puzzled. They did not know what Yi Shiwen was thinking. They could only guess that he had really gone crazy. And just as they were shocked, Yi Shiwen's attack became even more violent. It was not just fist techniques, palm techniques, leg techniques, blade techniques, sword techniques, lightning techniques, wind techniques, time techniques, space techniques. 3,000 martial techniques were unleashed at the same time. With every martial technique unleashed, Yi Shiwen's aura became more violent. At the same time, the cracks on his body also deepened. And these martial techniques were unleashed in an instant. They did not hold back at all as they hit Divine Lord Tian Fa. Everyone could only see Divine Lord Tian Fa being drowned by the terrifying attacks that were like a torrential storm. He did not even have the slightest reaction. Among them, Commandment Divine Lord was the most surprised. This was because he never expected that the trump card that Yi Shiwen used after exceeding his limits would be so terrifying and powerful. And Qin Zun's eyes were similarly filled with surprise and doubt. He had always believed that Yi Shiwen was comparable to Divine Lord Divine Punishment. That was already a trump card. That was already very terrifying. However, he never expected that it was just the beginning. Yi Shiwen's true trump card was human conformity. And after entering human one, Yi Shiwen would be so terrifying. Chapter 38-37. Of course, most importantly, no one had expected Yi Shiwen to be so crazy. He had traded injury for injury. After all, from a normal person's point of view, although the Tao character steal was good, it was not worth risking one's life. Once he and Divine Lord Tian Fa were both injured, it was certain that he would not have the chance to take the Tao character steal away. No one here would allow him to take the Tao inscription steal away. Although they hadn't realized what kind of treasure it was still a fortuitous encounter for them that could only be chanced upon and not sought after. Regardless, Yi Shiwen's sudden outburst was a fact. Although Yi Shiwen was strong, entering the state of human one and burning the supreme ancestral symbol would still cause terrifying damage to his body. Hence, he knew that he did not have much time left. If he did not finish off Divine Lord Tian Fa in a flash, the consequences would be unimaginable when the other rulers arrived. 3,000 martial paths. Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial principles were like a torrential storm, constantly falling on Divine Lord Tian Fa's body. Divine Lord Tian Fa was killed again and again, and his body cracked again and again. It could be said that he was in a miserable state. However, he had no other choice because he could not stop Yi Shiwen's actions. Yi Shiwen was too violent and did not give him any chance to catch his breath. Yi Shiwen was also a battle-hardened veteran. How could he give him such a chance? Even though the cracks on Yi Shiwen's body were getting deeper and more obvious, he did not give up. Divine Lord Tian Fa was depressed. Did he offend this lunatic somewhere? Otherwise, why would Yi Shiwen drag him down with him? Everyone thought that Yi Shiwen had gone mad. He was looking for someone to perish together with him. Are you all going to watch him kill me? Then you will get the Tao inscription steal? Divine Lord Tian Fa finally had time to roar. The other half-step sovereigns also came to their senses. However, no one dared to make a move against Yi Shiwen, who was in such a berserk state. Even the half-moon immortal monarch was casually killed, and the sky punishment immortal monarch, who was far stronger than the half-moon immortal monarch, was pressed to the ground and beaten up. If they were in Yi Shiwen's shoes, they would most likely die. Suddenly, someone finally moved. This person was none other than the Commandment Heavenly Lord. An iron pen appeared in his hand. The iron pen wrote commandments, using commandments to plan the great Tao of heaven and earth. This was the great Tao of the Commandment Heavenly Lord. He wrote the word commandment in the sky. In an instant, the rules of the entire world seemed to be in order. Originally, the various spaces in this world were in a state of complete disorder. Now, they were under control all of a sudden. The power of the rules also began to be used by the Commandment Lord of Heaven. Then, it suddenly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. At that instant, a stream of sword chi soared into the sky, sweeping out tens of millions of miles and breaking the Commandment Heavenly Lord's attack with a single strike. The Commandment Lord of Heaven frowned and said, "Qin Zun, what are you trying to do? This is already very obvious." Qin Zun said indifferently, "Why? Do you also want to be enemies with all of us?" The Commandment Lord of Heaven shouted. He saw that Yi Shiwen was almost beating the Divine Lord to the brink of death in the distance. That violent attack was frightening to look at. Be enemies with all of you? I have never tried it before. It seems a little interesting, Qin Zun said. In that instant, he had already made his choice. In comparison, Yi Shiwen, who came from the same era and the same race, was more trustworthy. He would fight for the great Tao that he wanted. Even if he had to be enemies with everyone in the world, he didn't care. However, he was also dismissive of the idea that he couldn't have it and neither could others. Come on, Commandment Heavenly Lord. Let's fight. Unless you can defeat me, I will not let you pass. The Commandment Lord of Heaven frowned and said, Qin Zun, is this necessary? Even if he killed the Divine Lord, do you think it is possible for him to take away the Tao inscription stele? Even if this is his foundation, it's obvious that the heavens didn't give him the chance to achieve the Tao. There are some things that we should do and some things that we shouldn't do. You don't have to say anything more. I'm definitely going to interfere in this matter, Qin Zun said. The disciplined Heavenly Lord looked at Qin Zun with a similar murderous intent in his eyes. The two of them came from the martial epoch. Clearly, they could not be trusted. Since that is the case, don't blame us for being impolite. When the two of you die, the martial epoch will end. The Commandment Heavenly Lord shouted. Many of the ancient epoch's half-step rulers also became restless. They had long wanted to destroy the martial epoch. However, Yi Shiwen was simply too domineering, so they did not dare to act rashly. But now, as long as both Yi Shiwen and Qin Zun died here, then it would be possible for their dreams to come true. However, just as Qin Zun thought that he was going to fall into a tough battle, the outcome of Yi Shiwen's battle was already decided. Yi Shiwen, who was in a berserk state, punched through Divine Lord Tian Fa and blew him up again. But this time, the Divine Lord could not reassemble his physical body. His primordial spirit was crushed by Yi Shiwen. Divine Lord died, just like that without being able to fight back. A round of beating. What? How long has it been? The Commandment Lord of Heaven also gasped as if he had seen a ghost. The Divine Lord's strength was similar to his. The two of them could be said to be peerless figures of the Eternal Sacred Land and the Eternal Sacred Land, respectively. Even the other half-step rulers of the two sacred lands had to respect them. In other words, if it were him, the result would not be any better. That was the scariest. Boom! Yi Shiwen's body suddenly exploded and reformed in the next second. His face was a little pale. He had to pay the price for using the supreme ancestral symbol to enter the state of human one unification to defeat the Divine Lord. It was impossible to not pay a price at all. Seeing this, Qin Zun could not help but heave a sigh of relief. After Yi Shiwen killed the Divine Lord, the pressure on him was much less. However, he was also curious as to why Yi Shiwen was so crazy. Suddenly, layers upon layers of tribulation clouds started to appear in the entire world. The terrifying tribulation cloud had almost completely formed in an instant, and the dark tribulation cloud had almost covered everything that could be seen by the naked eye. How can he undergo tribulation here? The Commandment Heavenly Lord exclaimed. He could already tell that the person in the center of the heavenly tribulation was none other than Yi Shiwen. Obviously, it was Yi Shiwen who was undergoing the heavenly tribulation at this time. The tribulation that Yi Shiwen was undergoing was also obvious. It was the heavenly tribulation of a half-step ruler, But what shocked and baffled them was that the calamity of a half-step ruler could only be triggered in their own epoch. Only by obtaining the recognition of their own epoch could they possibly overcome this calamity that had caused countless Empyreans to fall into the sand. They had never heard of anyone being able to trigger a heavenly tribulation in the primal chaos, let alone in this mysterious place. This place should be isolated from all the ancient era's heavenly Tao. It was impossible to trigger a heavenly tribulation. How did he do it? This was everyone's first reaction. Then, they felt that he had gone crazy. Everyone would find a remote place to avoid attracting the attention of powerful enemies when undergoing tribulation. However, Yi Shiwen triggered a heavenly tribulation in front of everyone's eyes. In fact, everyone knew that there were sovereigns in this mysterious place. Moreover, more than one sovereigns had entered this place. Although they didn't know where they were right now, it was obvious that if they were to undergo tribulation here, they would most likely alarm those sovereigns. At that time, Yi Shiwen would not be able to get away with it, especially the Yama heavenly monarch, who had destroyed the ghost epoch. He would probably want to tear Yi Shiwen into 1,000 pieces. Transcending the tribulation here was simply courting death. During this period, everything that Yi Shiwen had done was inconceivable. If they did not know that Yi Shiwen was definitely not possessed by the heart demon, they would have suspected it long ago. Given their cultivation, what kind of heart demon could shake their minds, let alone control their thoughts? However, although they could not figure it out, they still retreated at the first opportunity. They immediately left the range of the heavenly tribulation. This heavenly tribulation was terrifying even to them. If they stayed and got targeted by the heavenly tribulation, they would suffer heavy casualties. The heavenly tribulation of a half-step ruler can actually be this strong. He is already so horrifying now. If he succeeds, won't he really become a ruler expert? If he really succeeds, I'm afraid it will be impossible for us to destroy the martial epoch, unless the martial epoch enters the heavenly decay and is destroyed by itself. If we undergo the tribulation here, we'll attract sovereigns, right? We'd better stay away from here. If we really encounter sovereigns, we'll be able to take advantage of the chaos to escape. If those sovereigns are unhappy, I'm afraid they'll kill us too. Many half-step rulers already wanted to retreat. Just Yi Shiwen alone was not enough to move them. However, if there were rulers, it would be enough to kill them without a burial place. Half-step sovereigns were too weak before sovereigns. The martial epoch's heavenly Tao had already proven this point. Numbers were useless. What is he trying to do? Qin Zun muttered to himself. He did not believe that Yi Shiwen was crazy. Yi Shiwen must have his reasons. Then, what was the reason? Chapter 38:38. The heavenly tribulation of a half-step ruler was just about to begin. There was no one around Yi Shiwen. They had all retreated out of fear of being caught in the crossfire. However, Yi Shiwen didn't intend to take advantage of this victory to pursue and attack, because he was very clear about how bad the situation he was facing now was. He had seized the Tao inscription tablet in front of everyone, so the half-step rulers would not allow him to take it away. After killing Divine Monarch Tian Fa, his condition had deteriorated considerably. There was no way he could leave with the Tao inscription tablet. Even if Qin Zun was willing to stand on his side, his chances of winning were not high. Therefore, there was not much of a path left for him. In fact, it could even be said that there was not much of a path left for him. The only thing he could do now was to draw out the heavenly tribulation and borrow its power to force them back. Then, all that was left was to pass the tribulation. Once he passed the tribulation, he wouldn't have to worry about anything else. Once he stepped into the half-step sovereign realm, these people wouldn't be a threat to him anymore. However, if he failed, everything would be over. He was gambling. To others, there was no need to gamble, but to him, it was inevitable. He wasn't worried about these half-step rulers. He was more worried about the ruler that might appear later. Therefore, he had to draw out the heavenly tribulation. Using the power of the heavenly tribulation, not only would he be able to cut off the half-step rulers, but it would also prevent the ruler from interfering. He could draw out the heavenly tribulation because of the Tao inscription tablet in his body. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to draw out the heavenly tribulation of a half-step ruler in the distant primal chaos. Boundless lightning flashed above the heavenly tribulation. In an instant, it turned into a boundless thunderstorm. Each thunderstorm was a desolate divine lightning that could easily pierce through a world. The scene of the heavenly tribulation was like the end of the world. One layer after another, there were 81 layers. Each layer was more terrifying than the one before. Many half-step sovereigns felt their expressions change in the face of Yi Shiwen's heavenly tribulation. Their heavenly tribulation wasn't even 1/10 of Yi Shiwen's heavenly tribulation. Such a terrifying heavenly tribulation. Once he ascends, it will be unimaginable. His potential is too great. An Empyrean can actually beat up a half-step ruler, but this also limits his progress. He will have to pay a price. In this battle, he will definitely die. Many half-step sovereigns were frightened by the terrifying heavenly tribulation. Every time a chaos divine thunder fell on Yi Shiwen's body, it would set off an earth-shattering explosion. However, this was just the beginning. Along with the explosion of the chaos divine thunder, endless mysterious light emerged and swept away the world. Fire lightning, water lightning, wood lightning, metal lightning, earth lightning, yin and yang lightning, all sorts of lightning were drawn. Time energy and spatial energy swept out. The good fortune's precious clothes emerged on Yi Shiwen's body, and protected him within it. However, he still seemed like a small boat in the face of a violent storm in everyone's eyes. It seemed as if he could be swallowed by this violent sea of thunderstorms at any time. However, everyone soon discovered that Yi Shiwen's method of transcending the heavenly tribulation was also very violent. He casually grabbed the sky full of thunderstorms and refined them into his body. Then, he continuously grabbed the thunderstorms and refined them into his body. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect Yi Shiwen to transcend the heavenly tribulation in this way. Amidst the endless thunderstorm, Yi Shiwen felt as if he was leisurely swimming in the sea. He wasn't afraid at all. Instead, his body, which had been damaged by using the man-conformity in one state, was slowly recovering at this time. Of course, this was because Yi Shiwen had the Purple Heaven Divine Thunder in his body. The Purple Heaven Divine Thunder was the first thunderbolt in the world. It was the ancestor of all thunderbolt. Countless thunderbolts evolved from the Purple Heaven Divine Thunder. Yi Shiwen grabbed the power of these thunderbolts, and then refined them into his Purple Heaven Divine Thunder. The Purple Heaven Divine Thunder's origin within his body gradually grew stronger, and became even more terrifying. However, Yi Shiwen didn't become complacent because he knew that this was just the beginning. The thunderstorms in the sky didn't slow down. Gradually, an even more terrifying scene appeared. All kinds of rules manifested, and then turned into the heavenly tribulation, falling directly. With the power of thunderbolts as the core of all the rules and principles in the world, it controlled all the rules in the world and turned into a terrifying heavenly tribulation, falling directly. Each rule was like a waterfall crushing on the spot. This was no longer a simple thunder technique. All kinds of great Tao were contained in it. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He didn't retreat at all. Instead, he directly rushed into the waterfall and smashed it with a punch. Then, he rushed to another waterfall. This fierce method of transcending the heavenly tribulation stunned many half-step sovereigns. Ordinary people would passively wait for the heavenly tribulation to fall and think of a way to survive it. Obviously, Yi Shiwen didn't want to wait passively. He was taking the initiative to transcend the heavenly tribulation. Yi Shiwen exploded more and more of those streams, and then absorbed them into his body. The Tao steel continued to absorb them. Then, it spat out the information of the principles, and directly fed it back to Yi Shiwen. It was like refining, removing all the impurities and presenting the final essence to Yi Shiwen. Therefore, everyone could clearly see that Yi Shiwen's aura was still rising. He was becoming stronger, and his understanding of the great Tao was increasing. At the same time, in his body, dragon veins were burning, turning into resources for Yi Shiwen to devour. At this time, Yi Shiwen's understanding of the great Tao was rising crazily. At the same time, his spiritual power was constantly being transformed. Two parts were going at the same time, causing his strength to continue to grow. Before coming out this time, he almost emptied a third of the Fortune God dynasty's accumulated wealth. It could be said that he had an unimaginable amount of wealth on him, enough to support his breakthrough this time. If he could endure it, the Fortune God dynasty would only benefit more and more. But if he couldn't, the Fortune God dynasty's future would be worrying. Naturally, it would be useless. Will he really succeed if he surpasses the tribulation so forcefully? The commandment Heavenly Lord's eyes widened. According to Yi Shiwen's current level of improvement, wouldn't he be comparable to a ruler? This was the most terrifying thing. If Yi Shiwen succeeded, who could stop him? But he didn't dare to go near the tribulation. At this time, he already understood Yi Shiwen's intention. He used the tribulation to isolate the safest area, so that no one would dare to cross the tribulation to kill him. However, he had no choice but to admit that Yi Shiwen's method was the right one. This method might seem crazy and dangerous, but it succeeded in scaring everyone. No one could withstand such a terrifying heavenly tribulation. Ordinary half-step sovereigns would be gravely injured and die within a short period of time. This was the fundamental reason why everyone felt that Yi Shiwen was tyrannical and terrifying. This kind of strength was enough to make everyone tremble. At this time, the heavenly retribution changed again. It directly transformed into various kinds of divine weapons. They were all terrifying and famous Tao tools from ancient times to the present. The Tao marks of these Tao tools were engraved in the primal chaos void. They wouldn't end even after countless eras. However, at this time they were evolved by the heavenly retribution. All kinds of terrifying attacks directly fell on Yi Shiwen's body. Even someone as tyrannical as Yi Shiwen's good fortune treasure robe was pierced in an instant. It couldn't withstand the crazy attacks of so many Tao treasures. Cracks appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. Every time Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, it would destroy a Tao tool. However, more Tao tools would fall on his body, almost blowing up his entire body. Extremely terrifying. In this kind of situation, even someone as powerful as Yi Shiwen would bleed. But Yi Shiwen still held on. The Martial Supreme Seal flew out from the top of his head, and a curtain of light hung down, protecting him. Then, he used the 6 paths of reincarnation fist in one hand and the sword of fate in the other to conquer the lightning. He wasn't willing to show weakness at all. If this continues, he won't really achieve the Tao, right? A half-step ruler said worriedly. Clearly, it wasn't good news for them if Yi Shiwen achieved the Tao. At this time, a cold snort came from the void. Then, a huge hand suddenly slapped from thousands of miles away. It directly penetrated the tribulation and bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen spurted out a mouthful of blood essence, and his entire body instantly exploded into pieces. He had been seriously injured in an instant. Everyone was shocked by this sudden change. No one expected Yi Shiwen to be seriously injured just as he was about to defy the heavens and successfully transcend the tribulation. He was about to become stronger as he fought, but now he was seriously injured. Who is it? Some people were shocked and confused. They looked at the commandment Heavenly Lord and Qin Zun. Among everyone present, the two were undoubtedly the strongest. But obviously, neither of them could make a move. They couldn't be strong enough to seriously injure Yi Shiwen in the midst of the tribulation. After all, Yi Shiwen's seemingly invincible figure was deeply imprinted in their minds. And there was only one possibility for this to happen. A ruler had made a move. Everyone reacted immediately. However, they didn't feel relieved just because Yi Shiwen had been seriously injured. They understood that an even more terrifying existence than Yi Shiwen had appeared. If a ruler whose friend or foe was unknown had appeared, Yi Shiwen and the others could still rely on numbers to besiege him. But what if it was a ruler? Which ruler had made a move? Chapter 38-39. After Yi Shiwen's body reformed, he spat out another mouthful of blood. This attack had severely injured him. It could be said that it had interrupted his ascension. "You've been watching for a long time, haven't you?" Yi Shiwen stared coldly at the void. He looked at the end of the giant hand. The entire hand had been inserted into the heavenly tribulation. It had already been wrapped up by countless divine law chains. How could it escape the wrath of the heavens? Anyone who dared to interfere with the heavenly tribulation had to be prepared to pay the price. Soon, the giant hand suddenly burst into flames under the effect of the laws. These flames were karmic fire. It was useless no matter where one fled to, until they reached the spot where the person was completely incinerated. Generally, this kind of karmic fire would only appear on the bodies of people who had committed the most heinous crimes. It was a method of heavenly punishment. Soon, a muffled groan came from the other end of the arm. He'd cut off his arm to survive. Although regrowing severed limbs was a simple matter for them, regrowing an arm back to its original state required a hefty price. The other party was willing to pay such a huge price to injure him. One could imagine how much he hated him with his surging killing intent. Moreover, he'd chosen to intervene when Yi Shiwen's ascension was at its peak. His grasp of the opportunity was unimaginable. The opportunity only existed for a split second. Just when Yi Shiwen was exhausted and hadn't had time to recover, he'd interrupted his ascension. If Yi Shiwen was allowed to continue, it wasn't impossible for him to counterattack and directly become a half-step ruler. This heavenly tribulation looked terrifying, but Yi Shiwen had actually prepared for it for hundreds of thousands of years. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to display such strength. Coupled with his strength, he could even beat up a half-step ruler. He also had the golden light of virtue to protect him. In reality, although this heavenly tribulation was terrifying, it wasn't to the extent of leaving him helpless. He dared to undergo it in front of everyone, so how could he not have prepared at all? What he'd really been guarding against was the possibility of the rulers interfering. But in reality, he'd still been tricked. What a terrifying attack! The other party had been lying in wait for a long time and had finally made a move. Ruthless and terrifying. If you hadn't decisively detonated the heavenly tribulation, do you think you'd have the opportunity to stand here and speak? A cold voice came from the depths of the void. Just as Yi Shiwen had expected, a ruler had arrived and might even have intervened. Yi Shiwen had a vague feeling that something was wrong, so he'd triggered the heavenly tribulation. This was his way of protecting himself. If the Sovereign Lord tried to force his way into the heavenly tribulation and kill him, it wasn't impossible, and the Sovereign Lord wouldn't necessarily die. However, the backlash from the heavenly tribulation would be enough to seriously injure him, and in this unknown place, he would have to pay a heavy price. Plotting against me here, Heavenly Lord Yama. If I succeed in my Tao, I will definitely kill you. Yi Shiwen spat out a mouthful of blood and said. His complexion was much better now. Although there were many thunder tribulations in the sky, but they couldn't hurt him. Yi Shiwen's words caused a commotion among the half-step rulers. The prestige of the Heavenly Lord Yama had lasted through countless eras. In fact, he was the source of death, the source of countless myths about the underworld king. It could be said that in every era, there were all kinds of myths about death, reincarnation, and rebirth. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that many of these half-step rulers had grown up listening to Yama Heavenly Monarch's name. Even though many eras had passed, that was a terrifyingly powerful sovereign. Although they were only a single step away from becoming sovereigns, they were well aware of just how far apart they were from each other. Yi Shiwen's strength was outstanding among them, but he was seriously injured by Yama Lord of Heaven in just one blow. Although Yi Shiwen's defense was insufficient, but the strength of Yama Lord of Heaven could be seen from this. Wait until you can do it, then you can talk big, Yama Heavenly Monarch just said indifferently. He had such strength, and he also had such pride. One of his arms had been chopped off by Yi Shiwen last time. It could be said to be a great humiliation, but that was all. He could regard it as a great humiliation, but he could also treat it as if it didn't matter. After all, he could always come back and crush Yi Shiwen to death with one finger. At this time, Yi Shiwen's aura was obviously incomparable to his previous one. Even the half-step sovereigns could see this. Previously, Yi Shiwen could do whatever he wanted in Heaven's retribution, but now he was in a difficult situation. Although Heaven's retribution had become more frightening, that wasn't the reason. Everyone knew the real reason. Although he was in a difficult situation, Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change. He didn't panic at all. More and more Heaven's retribution fell, gradually reaching its peak. He knew that this Heaven's retribution had reached its most crucial moment. If he could endure it, he would successfully become a half-step sovereign. If he failed, he would turn into ashes. In the sky, one terrifying figure after another appeared. Each of these figures could suppress the heavens and earth. Their auras seemed to be able to pierce through the river of time, spreading their fame for thousands of generations to come, endlessly and endlessly. Hiss, an ancient sovereign appeared in Heaven's retribution. He's dead for sure. Ancient sovereigns are the cream of the crop among their peers. Even at the half-step sovereign level, they are far superior to other half-step sovereigns. Many half-step sovereigns couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. Among these figures, the weakest was comparable to the Commandment Heavenly Lord, and the ordinary ones were much stronger than the Commandment Heavenly Lord. These were the past sovereigns. The Commandment Heavenly Lord's face turned green and white. He was feeling proud before, thinking that he wasn't inferior to the past sovereigns. But now it seemed that he was still a step behind. He wasn't willing to give up, so he wanted to take a good look. Perhaps he could find the gap between him and the past sovereigns. Now, the Commandment Heavenly Lord was only one step away from the final breakthrough. These battles were also very good examples for him to learn from. He knew that it was dangerous. The Inferno Heavenly Lord might attack them. This person, the source of death, wouldn't give any face to them. In the end, those below the sovereigns were nothing in front of the sovereigns. Yi Shiwen's expression finally turned serious as he faced these powerful figures. He knew that the truly terrifying battle was about to begin. However, he wasn't afraid. He took a step forward and took the initiative to attack. The battle was about to begin. In the void, a great battle suddenly broke out. This was the most tragic battle. Any one of them was a dazzling existence. For Yi Shiwen, any one of them was an opponent that he had to use all his strength to defeat. With so many of them appearing all at once, one could imagine how terrifying it was. They were existences that had been awakened from the river of time and had reconstructed their bodies. They couldn't be compared to their peak, but they were still terrifying. Yi Shiwen could cause great damage to them with every attack. At the same time, their attacks could also pose a great threat to Yi Shiwen. It could be said that every attack was fatal. During this process, Yi Shiwen kept blasting the sovereigns. Fortunately, the heavenly Tao had left a glimmer of hope. After the sovereigns' imprints were destroyed, the sovereigns wouldn't come back to life. Even so, Yi Shiwen's body had been destroyed many times. Every time he came back to life, his aura had become slightly weaker. However, under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen was constantly borrowing the power of the supreme ancestral symbol. Each of his attacks was capable of changing the world, and possessed unimaginable might. In this way, Yi Shiwen kept getting weaker and weaker. His injuries were getting more and more serious. However, there were fewer and fewer people who could stand against him. He's burning himself to the limit. Even if he can kill all of those figures, so what? He'll still die. No one can save him with such serious injuries. Moreover, the Inferno Heavenly Lord is here. I'm afraid that the Inferno Heavenly Lord won't let him go this time. It's a pity that such a peerless character can stand shoulder to shoulder. No, he might even surpass those sovereigns. It's really a pity that he has fallen like this. Many half-step sovereigns saw that Yi Shiwen was about to die. They couldn't threaten him anymore. Their admiration for Yi Shiwen's amazing performance resurfaced in their hearts. Others might not remember such a dazzling character after many years, but they would remember that such a character once existed. In the long river of time, he had shone for a moment. He seemed unparalleled, but so what? If he couldn't survive, what was the point of having tyrannical strength? Not far away, Qin Zun was also very anxious. However, he knew that this wasn't the time for him to intervene. Whether it was the heavenly retribution or the powerful Inferno Heavenly Lord, he couldn't deal with either of them. Yi Shiwen could only rely on himself. Come on, I can only help you so much. You can only rely on yourself for the rest. Qin Zun could only cheer for Yi Shiwen. Dying under the heavenly retribution and turning into ashes is too easy for you. The Inferno Heavenly Lord sneered and said. He couldn't personally kill Yi Shiwen to take revenge. It was really a pity. After a long time, Yi Shiwen finally destroyed the last shadow of the Sovereign Lord. It was already in tatters, and there wasn't a single piece of flesh on its body that wasn't injured. One of its arms was broken, and its golden bones could be seen everywhere. Its breathing gradually weakened, and its entire body was burning. He had overused the power of the supreme ancestral symbol, and had finally been forced into a dead end. Just like a hero in his twilight years, the heavenly retribution also gradually reduced until it disappeared. The heavenly retribution was finally over. However, Yi Shiwen couldn't take the last step. Just when everyone was thinking this, Yi Shiwen suddenly moved. Chapter 3840. Yi Shiwen's fingers moved slightly. Suddenly, an even more terrifying power swept out from his body. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen's magic power rose like crazy. Everyone watched as his magic power surged every once in a while, breaking through the half-step sovereign realm's barrier. His magic power continued to rise. All the half-step sovereigns were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it. They didn't understand how Yi Shiwen could still increase when he was clearly at the end of his rope. What's going on? Why is he still increasing? A half-step sovereign asked in disbelief. Even if they were experienced and knowledgeable, they had never seen such a strange situation. Yi Shiwen was clearly at his limit. There was no chance of revival. I understand now. Without destruction, there can be no construction. This is the principle of without destruction, there can be no construction. Qin Zun clapped his hands and laughed. Sure enough, he understood the reason. Although he didn't understand how Yi Shiwen did it, he understood the principle. He looked at Yi Shiwen with admiration for the first time. Everyone knew the principle of without destruction, there can be no construction. It was easy to say, but not many could do it. Especially in this situation, the heavenly tribulation should have cut off his only chance of survival. How could he still have the ability to recover? This was the most unbelievable. This was also the key point that no one could think of. But no matter what, Yi Shiwen had done it. It didn't matter how he had done it. At this point, he had already stepped in front of her. Although they were both half-step sovereigns, who would consider him the same as them. However, everyone knew that it wasn't over yet. There was one person here who wouldn't allow Yi Shiwen to complete this transformation. He also had the strength to do so. Who else could it be but Heavenly Lord Yama? Right now, Yi Shiwen was going from weak to strong, breaking through the limits of half-step sovereigns. Whether it was Commandment Heavenly Lord or Qin Zun, they couldn't stop Yi Shiwen. But Heavenly Lord Yama could. You want to break through? Die for me. Suddenly, Heavenly Lord Yama, who had been watching from the side for a long time, finally made his move. Boundless power swept out and turned into a palm that slammed towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! This palm directly hit Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen simply had no way to avoid it. Yi Shiwen spouted a mouthful of blood, and was sent flying thousands of miles away. However, the half-step sovereigns sucked in a breath of cold air. They could see that although Yi Shiwen was sent flying again, this time, his body wasn't destroyed. He only spat out a mouthful of blood. Compared to a moment ago, Yi Shiwen looked incomparably distressed and miserable. There was not a single piece of good flesh on his body, but his fighting prowess had truly improved. They were all smart people and naturally understood how terrifying this was. Although it seemed that Yi Shiwen was still not a match for him, he had already taken that step. This was what they were most envious of. How many epochs had they not worked hard for? Wasn't it for this opportunity to step into that realm? This was the scariest part. You didn't die? Yi Shiwen didn't die. Even the Heavenly King Yama was a little puzzled about this. He started to become serious. Right now, Yi Shiwen was no longer an ant that could be casually crushed. Yi Shiwen half knelt in the void, constantly inhaling and exhaling. However, every time he inhaled and exhaled, it wasn't ordinary qi at all. It was the legendary Tao Law. He swallowed the Tao Law and then exhaled it. I finally took this step. I have been walking this step for 100,000 years. I have finally waited for this day. Without destruction there can be no construction. It is indeed a great principle. Heavenly King Yama, do you dare to come out and fight? It is all thanks to you that I can reach this step. If it wasn't for you, I am afraid that I would not have escaped death today. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Are you crazy? The Heavenly King Yama's voice was as calm as an ancient well. Yi Shiwen's words couldn't shake his will. In his opinion, this was just Yi Shiwen's final struggle. Yi Shiwen grinned. No one believed him, but only he knew the reason why he said that. In fact, he could finally come back to life because of his relationship with the Heavenly King Yama. The arm of the Heavenly King Yama that Yi Shiwen used all his strength to chop off belonged to the ruler's arm. That arm contained the ruler's Tao Law, which helped him to break through the boundary between the ruler and the half-step ruler realm. However, comprehension alone wasn't enough. It was useless if one's skill couldn't keep up. And it was precisely the blood essence contained in this arm that allowed the world tree to completely mature. It gave birth to the world tree fruit, which made up for his last flaw. After crossing the heaven's retribution, there was nothing that could stop him from breaking through. However, it was only an obstacle in the realm. As long as his skill could be replenished, it would be a piece of cake for him to improve his strength. Whether I am crazy or not, you will know once you try. Yi Shiwen grinned slightly. Today, I must kill you. Wishful thinking. The Heavenly King Yama didn't care about Yi Shiwen's words at all. Suddenly, in the void, a battleship traversed the river of time. Along with this battleship came the horrifying river of time. Using the power of time as the power to drive this battleship, such a method was really horrifying. This battleship instantly collided with Yi Shiwen. Even if it was a complete world, it would still die if it collided with it. It was unimaginably horrifying. That was the official epoch's ghost ship. This horrifying ghost ship sailed from one era to another, coming out from the river of time. This was the means of the Heavenly King Yama. Compared to the epoch's ghost ship in Granny Ghost's hands, the epoch's ghost ship driven by the Heavenly King Yama was obviously more horrifying than before. Its power was at least 10 times stronger. If the Epic's ghost ship had such horrifying power, the creation universe map wouldn't have been able to stop the Epic's ghost ship. At that time, the martial epic would be finished. Bang! A deafening explosion rang out. Everyone discovered that the epic ghost ship had been blocked. Everyone took a deep breath. They found out that the person who blocked the epic's ghost ship's power to penetrate through time and space was none other than Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen patted the era's ghost ship with one hand, and stopped it by force. Drip, drip. Blood flowed from Yi Shiwen's palm. His palm was cracked, but this was nothing compared to the fact that Yi Shiwen blocked the epic's ghost ship. He blocked the ruler Dao tool with his bare hands. Many people found it hard to imagine. It was the ruler Dao tool. Even the half-step rulers like them used the ruler Dao tool as their trump card. Now, Yi Shiwen blocked it with his bare hand. One could imagine how shocking Yi Shiwen's current performance was. His fleshly body was as strong as a sovereign Dao treasure. Epic's ghost ship. Very good. Very good. But Heavenly Lord Yama, if you don't show up, you won't be able to kill me. Yi Shiwen sneered. He blocked the epic's ghost ship with one hand. Although he wasn't unscathed, he was still strong enough. His aura was still growing stronger and stronger at a crazy rate. His 100,000 years of accumulation and countless merits appeared at the same time. That was the merit from when Shao Chen saved the martial epic and went on an expedition to the primal chaos, extending the martial epic's lifespan by hundreds of millions of years. Shao Chen collected all this merit. He used a portion for his own breakthroughs and comprehensions of the great Tao. However, he still had most of it. He used the rest at this moment. If not for that, why would he dare to undergo his tribulation here? The world tree fruit could only allow him to break through to the ruler realm. However, there were strong and weak rulers. He had just broken through, so he couldn't be that strong. Although he did it as a half-step ruler, which was shocking enough, it wasn't enough for him. It was far from enough. Boundless golden light radiated, and Yi Shiwen's injuries instantly healed. His aura continued to soar. With the support of the golden light of merits, Yi Shiwen's breakthrough didn't have any side effects. This was a gift from the heavenly Tao. To the half-step rulers, this was even more shocking. If they had been able to sense Yi Shiwen's bottom line in the beginning, then they couldn't even begin to fathom it now. He had truly stepped into the ruler realm. At this time, a matchless figure appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. It was only one person, but it seemed as if he had seized all the good fortune of the world. Everyone's eyes were suddenly attracted to him. Who else could it be other than the Heavenly Lord of Hell? At this time, Heavenly Lord Yama's expression was slightly dignified. Yi Shiwen's combat power at this time really made him feel the pressure. It was different from before. At that time, Yi Shiwen was nothing at all. Yi Shiwen's palm could make his body collapse and almost kill him. But now, Yi Shiwen really had the strength to compete with him. Heavenly Lord Yama's eyes were filled with shock. Just being a ruler was nothing. He was also a ruler. Since ancient times, there were very few people who could reach this step. Every one of them was a peerless character. He was also one of the best among them. He was confident that he was invincible. However, the fact that Yi Shiwen had made it this far with his half-step sovereign physique was what truly shocked him. Chapter 38-41. Whether the heavenly monarch Inferno was willing or not, he had to admit that he really needed to face Yi Shiwen seriously. Yi Shiwen was no longer the person who could suppress him with one hand 100,000 years ago and beat him until he vomited blood. At that time, Yi Shiwen wasn't a threat to him at all. He was just a nuisance. But now, regardless of whether Yi Shiwen's realm had reached the sovereign realm or not, his battle prowess had indeed reached the sovereign realm. You finally came out. I said before that as long as I can cross this line today, I will definitely kill you. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly and looked at Heavenly Monarch Yama. Just you? You really don't know the immensity of the heavens and the earth. You've indeed done something unprecedented, but so what? Do you really think that you and I can be on equal footing after your battle prowess has reached such a level? Too naive. Heavenly Monarch Yama said. On equal footing? Do I need to? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. His laughter was heroic. At this moment, he had truly reached a kind of peak. Let me see what kind of ability you have. Heavenly Monarch Yama shouted and then blasted out a punch. And this punch actually turned into a 6 paths of reincarnation, a 6 paths wheel. This is the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen's eyes widened as he recognized the 6 paths of reincarnation fist at a glance. He immediately understood that this must have been used when he fought with Heavenly Monarch Yama last time. After that, Heavenly Monarch Yama learned it. Heavenly Monarch Yama himself was the source of the 6 paths of reincarnation legend. This 6 paths of reincarnation was originally compatible with him, so it was normal for him to learn it. It was just that it was different from the 6 paths of reincarnation fist displayed by the demon monarch. It was even different from Yi Shiwen's. Heavenly Monarch Yama had already incorporated it into his own great Tao. That's right, it is the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. I didn't expect that in your martial epic, someone could actually comprehend the way of reincarnation to this level. It even gave me a lot of inspiration. Heavenly Monarch Yama laughed loudly. His words were filled with incomparable confidence. He was the creator of the legend of reincarnation, and this fist technique coincided with his great path, so there was no reason for him not to learn it. In fact, although the Demon King's cultivation was not comparable to the Heavenly King Yama's, those who could cultivate to the level of the Demon King were all extreme powerhouses. Only those who had walked a unique domain on a certain path could become extreme powerhouses. The Demon Lord's inability to raise his cultivation was largely due to the limitations of the universe. Otherwise, he would have been able to step into the Empyrean realm. There was no difference in power, but there was a difference in power between people. It was the same 6 paths of reincarnation fist, but when the 3 of them executed it, it was 3 different fist techniques, each with their own strength. Yi Shiwen said coldly. Then, he took a step forward and clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. Golden light surged all over the sky. At this moment, he directly blasted out a punch. In an instant, it had already turned into a terrifying blow and went straight towards the Heavenly Monarch of Hell. Boom! 2 fist techniques of the same origin collided in the void. In an instant, the victor was already decided. Yi Shiwen was forced to retreat again and again. His fist was stained with blood, and the skin on his fist was broken. The Heavenly Monarch of Hell's cultivation was firmly suppressing him. Many half-step sovereigns were watching this battle. Seeing that Yi Shiwen was at a disadvantage, many of them nodded. To them, this was how it should be. For Yi Shiwen to be able to fight to this point was already shocking. The entire world exploded like a spider web. With the point of collision as the center, the space directly collapsed. In an instant, the sky and earth were densely packed with cracks. These half-step sovereigns retreated again and again, not daring to approach. Although Yi Shiwen was beaten back, he didn't seem dispirited at all. Instead, his blood boiled even more. The blood in his body began to surge, shooting up to the sky. The half-step sovereigns were shocked, as if they had seen a ghost. The Heavenly Monarch of Hell didn't feel proud just because he beat Yi Shiwen back. Because he felt a kind of threat. Yi Shiwen's strength was actually still increasing, not even for a moment. How much golden light of virtue did he get? Yi Shiwen had transformed all the golden light of virtue into a massive amount of magic power. Every minute and second that passed felt as if he had been cultivating for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. His strength was rising crazily with every passing minute and second. This was what made the Heavenly Monarch of Hell so afraid. Boom! Yi Shiwen's terrifying aura and blood shook the entire space, causing the half-step sovereigns' faces to turn pale. They were also half-step sovereigns, but in front of Yi Shiwen, they were too weak. The two of them weren't even on the same level. Such a scene was too terrifying. At the same time, it was also something that they dreamed of doing. Fighting a sovereign with a half-step sovereign realm cultivation was just a reminder to them that they were dreaming too much. It was something that was simply impossible to achieve. However, the reality was that someone had done it, and that person was also their enemy. Again, I won't go back on my words when I kill you today. Yi Shiwen burst into laughter. He felt extremely good. The blood in his entire body was surging and boiling. Crossing the past and not crossing the past were two completely different concepts. Once he crossed the past, he would have nothing to fear. Seeing that the heavenly monarch of hell was a little hesitant, Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. He took a step forward, clenched his fingers into a fist, and punched out. Yi Shiwen's attack was ruthless and cold. Opposite him, the heavenly monarch of hell was enraged. Yi Shiwen didn't even put him in his eyes. His eyes were like blades that fell on Yi Shiwen. His hands didn't slow down at all, and he blasted out another 6 paths reincarnation fist. In an instant, 2 6 paths roulette collided directly. Each 6 paths roulette was as huge as a world, vast and boundless. This was a world of 2 people, and the great techniques of the two clashed directly to the point of madness. Boom! Another terrifying collision ensued. Countless strange phenomena erupted in the surroundings and rose into the air. This kind of terrifying power was too terrifying. Yi Shiwen was blasted back a few steps again, but he immediately stabilized his body, and then he blasted out again in the direction of the heavenly monarch of hell. Boom! 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 Terrifying collisions occurred again and again. In an instant, a violent battle broke out between the two sides. The physical body of a sovereign was extremely tyrannical, and even without the help of a sovereign Dao tool, it was still extremely terrifying. The space had collapsed, and time had turned into a chaotic flow. It had long been a mess. Every time Yi Shiwen was blasted back, but this did not make the heavenly monarch of hell feel any better. On the contrary, he became more and more irritated. Every time Yi Shiwen was blasted back, it was only a minor injury, and he would completely recover by relying on the golden light of virtue. In other words, the heavenly monarch of hell's attacks were nothing to Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen's strength was constantly getting stronger. This was because with every attack, he could clearly feel that Yi Shiwen was getting stronger, and the damage to him was even greater. Moreover, this speed was simply too terrifying. Many half-step sovereigns opened their celestial eyes, wanting to imprint the battle into their nascent divinity. After all, the chances of a battle between sovereigns were too low. They might not even get to see a few terrifying battles in an epoch. Just by watching, they felt that they could no longer keep up with the battle between the two sides. The battle between the two was too violent, especially Yi Shiwen. His cultivation level was still not as high as the heavenly monarch of hell, but his strength was comparable to the heavenly monarch of hell, and the terrifying combat power he could erupt was not inferior at all. Moreover, he was constantly getting stronger. Gradually, they discovered that the number of times Yi Shiwen was at a disadvantage was decreasing, and slowly, he was able to fight equally with the heavenly monarch of hell. When they all realized this, they couldn't help but gasp. Yi Shiwen's improvement was too fast. Each and every move of the heavenly monarch Yen Luo seemed to be the incarnation of the Great Way. They were full of a different kind of Tao charm. However, Yi Shiwen was completely different. He was purely attacking crazily. When the berserk magic power had climbed to a certain limit, he could also possess a terrifying fighting strength. Originally, when the cultivation level increased, the spiritual power also increased, but now Yi Shiwen broke this rule. Finally, no one knew how many tens of thousands of moves the two sides exchanged, but when Yi Shiwen's momentum continued to increase, and the spiritual power continued to soar, it finally transformed into a powerful qualitative change. Boom! The two fists finally collided, and in an instant the winner was decided. Drip, drip, drip. The blood fell into the void and pierced through the space. No one knew where it flowed to. This time, it wasn't Yi Shiwen who was injured, but the person who was injured was the heavenly monarch of hell. The two of them faced each other from a distance, and their momentum collided. Yi Shiwen retracted his fist, but he didn't give in at all. He just looked at the opposite heavenly monarch of hell indifferently, as if he was looking at a dead person. "I didn't expect you to be able to hurt me," said the heavenly monarch of hell. "It seems that I have underestimated you. There are many things that you can't think of. Today I said that I will kill you here, and I will never go back on my words," Yi Shiwen said and looked around. At this time, in the void, some vague figures appeared, and those figures were the ones that Yi Shiwen was most worried about. And the situation that he was most worried about had finally happened. The movement here had finally attracted the rulers. Although only the heavenly monarch of hell made a move, who knew if there would be others following him? Therefore, he had no other choice but to establish his prestige, and the heavenly monarch of hell in front of him was the best target to do so. And the heavenly monarch of hell was completely unaware that in Yi Shiwen's eyes, he had become a target to establish his prestige. Chapter 38-42. Although Heavenly Monarch Yama didn't know that Yi Shiwen was using him as a threat, he could feel that Yi Shiwen was gradually becoming more threatening. From the beginning, Yi Shiwen couldn't threaten him at all. Now, he could threaten his survival. Yi Shiwen had completely changed the world's impression of him in this short period of time. He had truly entered that realm. Although it was only his combat power, it was enough. At this time, they saw Yi Shiwen as an equal. They had no choice but to see Yi Shiwen as an equal. After all, Yi Shiwen's combat power had truly entered that realm. Now, I want to tell you that the combat power of a ruler isn't limited to this. Heavenly Monarch Yama looked coldly. The Era's ghost ship appeared around him, circling him slowly. Then, it swam to his palm and instantly turned into a treasured saber. Whoosh! The Era's ghost ship slashed out. This slash created a world of ghosts. It was extremely terrifying. The power of heaven and earth condensed on this slash. Heavenly Monarch Yama's attack power had clearly increased by a level. A ruler with a ruler's Tao artifact and a ruler without a ruler's Tao artifact were completely different. These rulers didn't refine their ruler's Tao artifacts just for the sake of appearance. Instead, they could improve their combat power. However, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. Although the attack power of the Heavenly Lord Inferno was obviously stronger by a level, there was no other way at this time. Although his combat power had entered this level, he was still far behind in terms of foundation. Yi Shiwen immediately took out his Martial Supreme Seal and used the Martial Supreme Seal technique to meet the attack. Using a half-step ruler's Tao artifact to compete with my ruler's Tao artifact? I think you're really muddle-headed. Heavenly Monarch Yama laughed heartily. He felt that his chances of winning had increased a bit. All new sovereigns had to go through such a stage. Once upon a time, he was the same. It was just that at that time, he didn't encounter a situation like Yi Shiwen's. When he had just attained the Tao, he was already the strongest person in the entire primal chaos. No half-step sovereigns came to contend against him. Clang! A loud explosion rang out, and a crack appeared on the martial sovereign's seal. A half-step sovereign naturally had to pay such a price to go against a sovereign Tao artifact. A sinister smile appeared on the face of the heavenly monarch of hell. It was as if he could see Yi Shiwen's miserable defeat. However, contrary to his expectations, Yi Shiwen didn't care about this crack at all. After pouring the golden light of virtue into it, the crack disappeared completely. It had to be said that the golden light of virtue was indeed a good thing. In fact, it was the best thing in the world. If it weren't for the fact that it was so difficult to obtain, then perhaps these rulers would also think of ways to obtain it. Humph. Let's see how much golden light of merit you have left. The heavenly monarch of hell naturally understood Yi Shiwen's plan, but he didn't take it to heart. How much golden light of merit could Yi Shiwen have to fill this bottomless pit? What was there to be afraid of? Enough to kill you, Yi Shiwen sneered, and then his face became expressionless again. Even King of Hell King couldn't figure out how much strength Yi Shiwen had at this time. However, he wasn't worried. No matter how much golden light of virtue he had, it wouldn't be enough to close the gap between the two sides. Yi Shiwen wasn't in a hurry either. Thus, the fierce battle between the two sides almost instantly started again. Boom! 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 All kinds of terrifying collisions were too much for the half-step ruler's eyes to take in. They felt that this trip wasn't a waste of time. There were still many benefits to be gained. However, Yi Shiwen was even more shocking to them. Not only was he a half-step sovereign realm expert, but his combat prowess had already surpassed that level. Even more shocking was the fact that Yi Shiwen's golden light of merit seemed to have no end in sight. This made them secretly speechless. Even if it were them, they wouldn't have so much golden light of virtue in reserve. Just how many times did Yi Shiwen save the world to have so much golden light of virtue? However, this kind of battle was getting more and more violent. Especially Yi Shiwen, his battle tactics were simple and violent. Because he had just stepped into the ruler realm, many of his techniques couldn't compare to the heavenly monarch of Hell King. He could only rely on violent battle tactics to win. This directly set the main tone of this battle. However, everyone quickly discovered that something was wrong. Yi Shiwen was still continuously improving. His spiritual power was still constantly erupting. This kind of terrifying spiritual power even surpassed that of the heavenly monarch of Hell King. It was like a flood that had been blocked by a dam. Now that the dam had been broken, he suddenly rushed out into the endless sea. And now, purely in terms of strength, he had surpassed the heavenly monarch of Hell King. The heavenly monarch of Hell King also realized this. The murderous intent in his eyes became even more intense. If such a person wasn't taken care of as soon as possible, he would inevitably become a great threat. The long saber in his hand was even more terrifying. Wherever the long saber passed, space collapsed and time became chaotic. All the laws disappeared, turning into a terrifying ghost domain. Countless malicious ghosts clamored and flew around. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care at all. His body constantly emitted the golden light of virtue. No matter what kind of malicious ghosts it was, they couldn't get close to him at all. All of them would be killed by the golden light of virtue. Although the cultivation of the heavenly monarch of Hell King was surpassed by Yi Shiwen, he now had the ruler Dao tool in his hand. In terms of combat effectiveness, he still firmly suppressed Yi Shiwen. He had no intention of letting go. Today, Yi Shiwen wanted to kill him, and he also wanted to kill Yi Shiwen to avoid future troubles. At the same time, his original era, the Ghost Dao era, was also destroyed by Yi Shiwen. How could he not take revenge for such a deep hatred? It was another fierce battle. For 3 days and 3 nights, both sides didn't stop for a moment. Every minute and every second there were millions of collisions. Time and space surpassed, only the two of them were eternal existences. At this time, suddenly, the heavenly monarch of Hell King stopped. He put away his saber and looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. "I didn't expect that I would be used by you." Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen and the heavenly monarch of Hell King in confusion. They didn't know what he meant. "You actually found out? What a pity, just a little bit more," Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He didn't deny it. In front of him, the Martial Supreme Seal emitted a dazzling light. 3,000 Martial Dao directly emitted 3,000 completely different kinds of visions, covering the sky and the sun. It seemed as if it carried the great Tao of an era and carried the essence of an era. Many half-step sovereigns' eyes widened in shock. That wasn't a half-step sovereign realm Tao artifact. It was a phenomenon that could only be produced by a sovereign realm Tao artifact. Good. How dare you use my strength to help you refine your martial supreme seal and transform it into a ruler Tao tool. The heavenly monarch of Hell King's face was a little ugly. How could he be in a good mood after being used by Yi Shiwen? At this time, everyone finally understood what had happened. Yi Shiwen had actually used the Heavenly Lord of Hell. Suddenly, many people only felt that they had to suck in a breath of cold air. Using the opponent's power to help one's Tao tool transform in the middle of a battle? What an amazing idea! What a crazy approach! Yi Shiwen was about to succeed. Yi Shiwen's martial supreme seal had completed the basic transformation. At this time, even if the heavenly monarch of Hell King found out, Yi Shiwen was only a little bit away from the transformation. It would no longer affect the transformation of the martial supreme seal. At this time, when many people recalled the previous battle, they already knew that something was wrong. Previously, there was a crack on the martial supreme seal, and Yi Shiwen used the golden light of virtue to repair it. Everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was using the golden light of virtue to repair the crack on the martial supreme seal. But now, it seemed that this was not the case. Yi Shiwen was clearly using the power of the heavenly monarch of Hell King to refine the martial supreme seal. The golden light of virtue continuously integrated into the martial supreme seal. It was definitely not only to repair the crack on the martial supreme seal, but also to refine the martial supreme seal. Under the dual effects of external force and the golden light of virtue, the martial supreme seal was also thoroughly transforming. This kind of collision happened every minute and second. After a long time, the martial supreme seal was getting closer and closer to success. Finally, the heavenly monarch of Hell King realized that something was wrong and stopped. At this moment, everyone looked at Yama Monarch again, and there was a hint of sympathy in their eyes. From the beginning to the end, Yama Monarch had been deceived by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had manipulated Yama Monarch's power. Yi Shiwen had used Yama Monarch's power to break through to half-step sovereign realm. At the same time, Yi Shiwen had used Yama Monarch's power to complete the transformation of revered martial seal. This was a typical case of losing one's wife and one's soldiers. The heavenly monarch of Hell King's expression became more and more ugly. In front of him, the martial supreme seal was undergoing the final transformation. Endless golden light of virtue poured into it. The martial supreme seal finally completed the final transformation. The sky and earth changed color. The entire mysterious world was shaken because of the transformation of the martial supreme seal. At this moment, Yi Shiwen finally completed the last shortcoming. Compared to ordinary rulers, he was not the slightest bit inferior. The martial supreme seal rotated for a while, and then expanded against the wind. It turned into a huge immemorial sacred mountain and fiercely pressed down on the heavenly monarch of Hell King. The long saber in the heavenly monarch of Hell King's hand turned into the epic ghost ship again. It faced the martial supreme seal head-on. The two rulers' Tao tools fought in the sky. Now only we are left. Heavenly monarch of Hell King, are you ready to die? Yi Shiwen shouted. Chapter 38-43. Yi Shiwen's shout shook the entire primal chaos. Everyone's expression changed. It was not the first time that Yi Shiwen said that he would kill the heavenly lord of hell. However, this time, everyone took his words seriously because Yi Shiwen was not much worse than the heavenly lord of hell at this time. Not only had his combat prowess crossed that line, but most importantly, his martial supreme seal had also become a ruler Tao tool. It wasn't any weaker than heavenly lord Yama's. In addition to Yi Shiwen's rising aura, perhaps he really had the ability to kill a ruler. This time, heavenly lord Yama didn't turn a deaf ear to Yi Shiwen's words. Instead, he took them seriously. Yi Shiwen was a vicious opponent who could stand on equal footing with him. A ruler wouldn't easily fight. After all, it wasn't easy to cultivate to this level. Who would be willing to fight to the death for some trivial matters? It might lead to their own death. However, there was no buffer between the Ghost Epoch and Yi Shiwen. The Ghost Epoch had nearly caused the Martial Epoch to enter the end of the world ahead of time, resulting in its destruction. However, Yi Shiwen was even more direct. After catching his breath, he destroyed the Ghost Epoch. At that time, just a heavenly venerate did not give him any face. Not only did he lose face, but he also lost his foundation. Both sides could only fight to the death. Most importantly, Yi Shiwen was already so terrifying. With the support of the Martial Epoch, it was unimaginable how far he could grow in the future. If he couldn't reconcile with such a person, he could only try his best to kill him. Therefore, he had a murderous intent. Every cell in his body was flickering with light, devouring the horrifying energy. Then, all of it condensed on his body. The Ghost Epoch's laws manifested. This time, he wanted to defeat Yi Shiwen in one breath, or even kill him. Heavenly Lord Yama is serious. It seems like both sides are really going to fight to the death, a half-step ruler said. However, he took a deep breath. Although it was rare to see a fight between ruler-level experts, it still happened. However, there weren't many of them fighting to the death. Now they were finally going to see it. Yi Shiwen also became serious. 3,000 martial Dao laws clashed around him. This was a miniature version of the clash between the two epochs. The Ghost Epoch had already been destroyed by the Martial Epoch, becoming a part of the Martial Epoch. Now, the Yama Heavenly Eye represented the Ghost Epoch to take revenge. The battle between the two sides was on the verge of breaking out. The Heavenly Monarch of Hell directly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. The great technique of the Ghost Dao era directly condensed on his palm, and then fiercely smashed down. This was not a battle of martial Dao. The martial Dao was just a carrier of the Ghost Dao Epoch's great Dao that Heavenly Monarch Yama had learned. Too slow, Yi Shiwen shouted, then raised his hand and suddenly chopped down. At this time, his entire arm turned into a sharp sword and chopped down all of a sudden, breaking the attack of the Heavenly Monarch of Hell. At this time, Yi Shiwen had already taken a step forward and launched an attack. Boom! The battle instantly broke out. Both sides wanted to kill each other, so naturally, they would not hold back at this time. Once they attacked, it would be a life-and-death battle. This was the most terrifying thing. The half-step rulers, who had already retreated far away, were forced to retreat even further. Only then were they barely able to adapt to the aftermath of the battle. Wu Zun, who do you think you are? Back then, I even fought with the Fortune Heavenly Monarch, let alone you. The Heavenly Monarch of Hell sneered, but his voice was incomparably deep. So what if we fought? I am me, and he is him. He didn't kill you, but that doesn't mean I can't kill you. Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. At this moment, the Martial Dao era's laws and the Ghost Dao era's laws completely broke out, tangling together and colliding. This scene was truly earth-shattering, to the extent that ordinary people could not imagine. However, the crowd soon discovered that something was wrong. Because both sides were desperately sending their attacks to each other, the results were as different as day and night. Both sides almost immediately won. Yi Shiwen allowed the Heavenly Monarch of Hell to pour his attacks on his body, but the Heavenly Monarch of Hell could not allow Yi Shiwen to attack him. The Heavenly Monarch of Hell's body was also extraordinary. He had created it himself, and it was hard to find an opponent in the entire era. Even in the boundless primal chaos, his body was the best, but it depended on who he was compared to. And Yi Shiwen's body was the most terrifying, the golden body of virtue. Since ancient times, no matter in which era, the golden body of virtue had always been the most terrifying. It was not something that could be cultivated naturally, and it had nothing to do with hard work. It could only be formed by virtue of virtue. This was the most terrifying. However, the golden body of virtue that was cultivated by a heavenly venerable during the half-step ruler period was nothing in front of a ruler. Could be smashed with one hand. But Yi Shiwen was different. His golden body of virtue had been condensed again after entering the half-step ruler realm, and it had smelted more golden light of virtue. Therefore, even the heavenly monarch of hell could not do anything to his golden body of virtue. This kind of constitution was very difficult to cultivate because there was no normal cultivation method. In fact, it would not even increase along with one's cultivation. At the same time, it was also very simple. As long as one had enough golden light of merit, there was no need to cultivate painstakingly. It was as if one was riding a rocket. It was just that the average person was the former. Occasionally, they could cultivate the golden body of virtue, but there was no more golden light of virtue to improve it. Yi Shiwen belonged to the latter. If the crowd had not discovered it before, then they had now discovered Yi Shiwen's strength. This unequal attack quickly revealed the superiority of the two sides in this fight. Bang! Yi Shiwen took Heavenly Monarch of Hell's attack head-on. Then, he pointed his finger. In an instant, it directly pierced Heavenly Monarch of Hell's shoulder. Last time, although Yi Shiwen had also cut off his arm, it was a surprise. To a large extent, it was caused by his carelessness. However, this time was different. Yi Shiwen had achieved this step by relying on his own strength. Although it was just a finger, it was still a heavy blow to Heavenly Monarch of Hell. He had cultivated to this point. Whether it was a finger, a palm, or a fist, there was no difference. Any martial arts was just a carrier to carry Yi Shiwen's martial Tao. Heavenly Monarch of Hell retreated again and again. A huge hole appeared in his shoulder. Even his shoulder blade turned into nothingness under this finger. Yi Shiwen's attack was too terrifying. Heavenly Monarch of Hell roared continuously and spat out a mouthful of blood. The wound on his shoulder instantly healed. This was because he used a secret technique to instantly heal his injuries. At this time, his gaze was even colder. Not long ago, he had to use all his strength to face a half-step ruler and was forced to this point. He wasn't willing to give up. He rushed towards Yi Shiwen again. His whole body's blood essence was burning. He had no other choice but to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen since he had been forced to this point. If Yi Shiwen didn't die, the one who would die was likely to be him. However, in the face of Yi Shiwen, all these methods that had never failed him seemed to be ineffective. Yi Shiwen was too strong. Moreover, his aura was constantly getting stronger. He was like the god of creation. His divine might was matchless, and he couldn't be contended against. His eyes were as cold lightning. There was coldness and sharpness in them. Bang! The Heavenly Monarch of Hell was blasted away once again. This time, his entire arm seemed to have been blasted apart. In the collision with Yi Shiwen once again, he made a mistake. His entire arm was blasted into pieces by Yi Shiwen's blood. At this time, even if the epic ghost ship wanted to come down and help, it was useless. Yi Shiwen's revered martial seal firmly suppressed the epic ghost ship. All kinds of golden light of merit sprinkled down as if they were free. This was a one-on-one battle, and it was also a one-on-one battle. No outsiders could participate in it. After Yi Shiwen seriously injured Heavenly Monarch of Hell, he didn't give up. Instead, he attacked again. 3,000 martial arts turned into 3,000 different kinds of attacks, all falling down. Heavenly Monarch of Hell had already thought of retreating. Such a person might not be someone he could deal with, but there was no way because Yi Shiwen was too strong. He had blocked all his escape routes. Yi Shiwen kept attacking. Heavenly Monarch of Hell finally revealed more and more flaws. His entire arm was blown up in the air, but Yi Shiwen's attack did not slow down and directly fell on his body. Bang! Heavenly Monarch of Hell was blasted away, and his entire body exploded. "You're going too far!" Heavenly Monarch of Hell roared. Endless ghost energy surged out of his body, forming an unimaginable momentum. This was him burning himself. This was his last fight. Going too far? As a ruler, you bullied me, who was only in the Heavenly Master realm. At that time, why didn't you say that you were going too far? Since you can't beat me, then hand over your life. Yi Shiwen's expression was very cold, and his killing intent was boiling. Heavenly Monarch of Hell's ultimate move was shocking. Even the half-step rulers felt their expressions change when they saw it. It was incomparably terrifying. But in front of Yi Shiwen, it was still nothing. He broke it with one punch. At this time, Yi Shiwen was really terrifying. The 4 words invincible were appropriate to describe him. Yi Shiwen's fist momentum did not slow down and directly hit Heavenly Monarch of Hell's body. Heavenly Monarch of Hell's body exploded again. But this time, he wasn't lucky enough to escape death. Yi Shiwen chased after him and smashed his primordial spirit. A powerful ruler had fallen. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.